there's something wrong with my brain. And I think it has to do with watching this cancer. Well, anyway, have you ever heard of Zoe Laverne? No? Well, you probably have a life. You probably don't use TikTok religiously. You know something's wrong with your ex-girlfriend's like, I'm like gonna start a TikTok and I think this is gonna help me launch my career. TikTok's gonna be the new thing. Like, girl, remember what happened with Vine? Only a select few made it through, and you think you're gonna get through. Without me giving you ideas, you have no ideas, sugar. Wake up. You better wise up, Janet Rice. All right, anyway. So Zoe Laverne is being passed by Charlie D'Amelio or something, right?
What?
In TikTok. You know, you'd sit there and you think, so what? Big whoop. That's life. Someone beats you in one way or another. The key is, you know, the comeback is always greater than the fall, as they say. I don't know if that's true or not. There's a lot of people that have some serious falls and ain't make no comeback. Like Mundane Matt, for instance. Like, for real. Dark Side Phil comes to mind. But whatever. So this girl gets passed and, oh, Stu, the camera, my dude. This girl gets passed and then has a meltdown. Run those clips, Stewie. Play it for me, baby. I need to see some white girl.
You can go across. We're not doing anything right now. Shit, I was just about to shoot someone. Damn.
I blocked you.
No.
Tears.
Literally crying about this for like an hour because it's just so like pathetic that like she just comes in and like
Oh my God,
she's
no.
so close to passing me and everybody's reminding me that she's gonna pass me and I just want to prove this bitch that I am better than her because I am Zoe Laverne and I am literally the
This white girl's losing her motherfucking mind. I am literally Zoe Laverne. I am the star of TikTok. Girl, I didn't know who you were. Remember, there was a time when people get famous for doing stuff and you actually knew who they were? Like if David Bowie, God rest his soul, came back and he came in my fucking, you know, computer room right now, out of nowhere. It's David fucking Bowie.
Jermaine, what are you doing?
It's not Jermaine. It's 1972 David Bowie from the Ziggy Stardust tour.
Wow, you look a lot like Jermaine.
No, I'm David Bowie.
Gundam, I'm David Bowie. I would go, yes, you are. You are the Thin White Duke. You are Ziggy Stardust. You're the Goblin King. You are Aladdin Sane. David Bowie. Zoe Laverne did not write Diamond Dogs. Why the hell is she giving her name like we're supposed to give a shit? Is that a photo of herself on herself? Do you know how much you have to love yourself? How into you gotta be to wear a shirt of yourself as a princess? Dude, I don't even wear a shirt of myself in real life. Even though I would love to own one. It's like, what? Queen, you're losing your little white mind. Where is her family to like bring her back to reality? Oh my God, TikTok is a mistake.
star of TikTok.
TikTok is trying to kill my girl Zoe. She's very bird-like. Imagine if I went that crazy over YouTube and I was like, I'd strangle their necks at YouTube headquarters. You know how fast they'd ban me? Probably get me up on charges too. They're like, he seems like he commits some sort of crime. This poor white girl is just losing her mind. Shed some tears with me, children. Isn't it strange how this white girl is so distraught over being passed on TikTok? That means that her life has got no real issues. Could you imagine the biggest problem you got is someone getting more followers than you on TikTok? Think about it. I know it sounds crazy. I know it. I know it's hard to wrap your mind around, but really try and imagine you are this white girl that's so popular. You don't have any problem with bills. You don't owe any money. Student loan debt, bad relationships, an ex like messes with you emotionally and financially. None of that. Zoe Laverne's biggest problem is TikTok. This girl commits suicide if she was walking a mile in my shoes. Like, imagine if TikTok blacklisted her like YouTube did my ass. She would have lost it. There would have been a mass. She would have been involved in it. Zoe Laverne, TikTok star, famous for dancing like this, was caught at the TikTok headquarters shooting people. Yeah, did I do a TikTok video like this? Zoe Laverne is being passed by Charlie D'Amelio. Oh my God, you guys. Oh my God, you guys. Man, I'm so tempted to pull out It's a Waifu, but I know there could be some contractual problems where they're like, we own this. You owe us money for making a joke. Look at this shit. Look at this. I'm giving you your zhuzh. This is total zhuzh. Look out, RuPaul's Drag Race. I'm coming in with the avatar. This is it. This is it. Give him a smile with this shit. Ah, yeah, there we go. Give me the smile with it. Ah, yeah, we're selling it now, baby.
Research or fortification.
Somebody better call the fire department because my pussy is on fire. Oh, my God. Oh, my God, you guys. Okay, we've really got to stop doing this stuff, Stu. It's wrong on so many levels. No, don't. No, stop that. Stop that. God damn it. Well, that's that. Zoe Laverne is being passed on TikTok and having a meltdown. I'm sorry. I'm having like that moment. You remember that YouTube meme where like the black guy is strung out on bath salts and he's falling all over the place and he falls in a
Go
car
on, Ollie.
and this black lady, I think, goes, "Ow, somebody!" And this other person goes, "He needs some milk. Get him some milk." This white girl needs some milk. That's the point of the story. Get her some goddamn milk.
Oh, Joe doing the people. Oh, somebody. Oh, he needs some milk.
All right. This is going to be all over YouTube by the time you wake up tomorrow. So you might even miss my video. Let's get into the news. I'm sorry. I tried to do the Keepstar thing, and then all of a sudden I started to think I was going to be a gnome, you know? Let's get into the news. Today, Batwoman will be played by a black chick because identity politics. Nah, that is too hard to keep up. We already know Batwoman was bombing. You know, the TV show of Ruby Rose. Let's face it. It was going down harder than... Probably can't even make that joke because YouTube sucks. All right, let's try one that we can get away with. It was going down harder than finding a job after COVID-19. Of course, Ruby Rose ditches it because it was an anchor pulling her career to the bottom of the ocean. So she pulled the ripcord and saved her own ass by quitting. But I think the damage has been done. Of course, you know, Warner Brothers is CW. They don't know what the hell to do. They don't know their ass from their elbow. They sit there and they say, what do we do? How do we replace Ruby Rose? Can we just randomly make Batwoman black? Oh, yes, good idea. Good idea. BLM. Okay, we're covering the bases. What else can we do? What else? We'll just make it a new character. That way people won't be upset or confused because people are stupid, we think. So Warner Brothers shows that the new Batwoman is this black chick that ironically looks like the same black girl from the Iron Man comic where the black chick steals the Iron Man suit and she becomes the new Iron Man. I don't even know her name because that's how disinterested I am in it. And I'm a person of color and I still don't care. She is cute though. I find her attractive. She wouldn't date me. I can never get any brown sugar. Not any brown sugar like this. Look at that. Lord have mercy. I'm ready to start playing some James Brown music. You want to hear some Babyface, girl? You got the whip appeal, so whip it on me. For those who don't know, I want to be a black soul singer. It's better than love, sweet as candy. Can't even use the background music because copyrights. You got that whip appeal, so whip it on me. Of course, people are commenting on it. It doesn't really matter, you know? To me, this just feels kind of like the ripcord. Oh, what do? We'll make a black character. Yeah, we'll make her black now. Woo! We're breaking down barriers. We're breaking down barriers and creating new stuff. Very inclusive stuff. Sadly, the entertainment business is about as creative as the last trip my cat took. They have no new ideas. No new characters. They rather take something that's established and then twist it to fit the sort of progressive narrative that we're at. I mean, what, Batwoman's how old now? Like, I think it came out how many years ago? I can't remember if it was 2007 or 2017. But Batwoman is a fairly new DC character. And honestly, yeah, it's 2007. It's kind of like we're already making her black. At least they waited like 30 or 40 years to turn Spider-Man black. Oh, Lord. The comments are pretty priceless because here's a great one from HBO Max right here. Check this out. The best woman for the Bat job. HBO. Tell me how well that Watchmen TV series you made went. Oh, that's right. It's canceled. I just had to make that point because it's funny. Black people are winning. I live to see white people upset. Is this really a win? Is anything going on really a win? I don't know. To me, it feels like pandering. And I don't want to be pandered to. I want to be blown away, surprised. I don't want things to be so predictable that it happens and you go, huh, why am I not surprised? You know, you want some edge. Make Batwoman a midget. What do you think of that, huh? What? What's that, Stu? I can't say the M word. For real. Can I say fidget tossing? Can I get away with that? No? All right, don't tell Susan. Don't tell Mama Susan. Exactly. Black excellence. The racist bidden to be mad. Is it really black excellence? I mean, the show hasn't even aired yet, and we're already screaming black excellence. Whatever. Whatever floats your boat. Personally, I don't understand identity politics. It kills creativity, in my opinion. And being pandered to really isn't something cool. It's kind of like being treated like a child, and the adults give you something to play with. Okay, here you go. Here's your token black there, Stewie. Now be quiet like a good little boy. Are you happy with your tokenism? Good. She's cute, though. I gotta not look at her photos, because she's looking hot. How dare you seduce me, madam? How dare you seduce me and not offer me a date first? I'm being sexually harassed by this photo. Javisha is her name. Damn. Yeah, I'm not gonna say anything because I only get in trouble. Don't matter, I'm not white. I can't say it. That's the wildest name I've seen since I met this one black girl named Essence Hubbard. Named after Essence magazine. I knew one chick named Source. Man, the ghetto is wild. Glad I'm out. Batwoman has found a new series lead by Javisha Leslie. Just stepped into the Cape and Cow for the show's upcoming second season on the WC. It'll bomb. Like, this is going to get canceled. You know that, right? They're going to go this road, and if this girl isn't like the Michael Jordan of saving bad CW shows, it's going to get canceled. And then they're going to go, racist white men hated the show. They wanted it ruined. I'm sorry, I keep doing the elf thing. The racist white men hated the show, and they didn't watch it. Racism is still alive and well in America. That's what we're going to get when this bombs. You know it. Just like it was men's fault for not watching Batwoman the first time with Ruby Rose. Jesus Christ. I'm extremely proud to be the first black actress to play the iconic role of Batwoman on television. Is it really iconic? Like, Batman's iconic. Batwoman is kind of like, She was in an animated TV show or something. Like, really? I don't feel Batwoman was iconic. But then again, you know how people in the LGBTQ are? Like, you could breathe oxygen and be in something, and it's iconic. This character's gay, it's iconic. The character's new. It's so iconic. It's an instant classic, you bigot. That's where we are right now. I'm sure I'll get in trouble for making that very obvious observation. Astute observation, I should say. Let's see. I'm gonna get high because the world sucks a lot of dick. Dude, I should do show tunes. Imagine if I did rap songs, but like in a Frank Sinatra sort of way. I'm honored to join this groundbreaking show, which has been such a trailblazer for the LGBTQ plus community, has it? Nobody watched it. It did blaze trails for getting bad ratings. I mean, if you want to call that trailblazing. Yeah, it blazed all the way to the ground. That's some serious blazing. Lord have mercy. This had to be from her agent. There's no way this girl is sitting there and going, oh, yes, the Batwoman show was so good. It was trailblazing. It revolutionized my life. It cured my mother of diabetes. You know, thank God for Ruby Rose and Batwoman. Have you seen that show? Remember, just, dude, find a clip of the show played here, Stu. It's bad.
Nicely done. Floor it.
Let's go, Batwoman. Oh my God. Is that real? Dude, that is great. I gotta watch that again. The guy like sticks his head out the window. He sees Batwoman. He's like, ah, it's my career ending. Ooh. What? Dude, did you see how he was running? What man runs like that? He was running like a 1930s villain. What the hell is this show is a... This is taken from like the whole Arrowverse thing where all the superheroes get together and do something. Oh boy. Ruby Rose's acting is terrible in this. Jesus Christ. It's like I watched it and had a good laugh. It's terrible. It is terrible. It's almost like celebrating contracting a disease. I'm so happy to get sickle cell alongside my friends and family. Like, good Lord, it's a bad show. Dude, if I was on Batwoman, I probably wouldn't promote it. To be real with you. Even if they paid me, I would not go, I'm going to be on Batwoman tonight. I'm the guy who gets thrown out the window.
Is it lagging?
Oh, it's a bad show. Just thinking about sitting and watching that one episode where, like, it was not fully Batwoman. It's like when all the other CW shows get together in their Avengers team. And, like, Batwoman is like, dude, just play the clips. It's so bad. It's so bad. The Three Stooges had better acting.
Not Batman.
Kate Kane told you to get out of Gotham. You should have listened to her.
And the Oscar goes to...
It's Mr. Todd Howard.
Oh, I forgot she's a bisexual woman. Why is like... Is it just me or is it like almost every chick in movies and television now bisexual at the very least or non-binary? It's kind of like everybody's too afraid to go, I'm straight.
Over the weekend, she tweeted, quote, female, check, colored, check, bisexual, check. Throughout my life, these have proven to be obstacles from time to time, but now I'm fully embracing them as my superpowers.
We don't give a damn.
But if she's bi, fine. I want some proof, though. Because it seems like something women just do now, like, oh, I'm bisexual. It's like, really? Have you had sex with a woman? No, but I find women attractive. That just means you find someone attractive that's good looking. It doesn't mean you want to eat the booty like groceries. Will you cut it out? You know, do not come back here until you're eating the booty like groceries. I don't want to hear it. You know, to me, it just sounds like this BS virtue signaling so you get to carry a rainbow flag and have some extra privilege, honest to God. You can't make fun of me, I'm LGBT. What do you think? Jeffree Star is still fine. If he was a straight man, he would have been canceled by now, fully. The only thing protecting him and Shane Dawson is that damn rainbow flag. That thing is stronger than kryptonite. Captain America's shield couldn't defeat the LGBTQ flag. Anyway, Leslie will portray a new character on the show named Ryan Wilder. Wow, so basically it's like, this is literally the Spider-Man Miles Morales, Spider-Man Miles Morales syndrome. It's like, okay, the white character is gone or, oh, it didn't work, or dead. So then, you know, the black chick comes in, or black guy, and la la la. I genuinely don't. She's good looking. She needs to stop sexually harassing me. Seriously, Stu, put her photos away. Thank God she doesn't stream on Twitch. I'd probably be simping. Let's see. Leslie will portray a new character on the show named Ryan. What? Me. Seriously, Stu, put her photos away. Thank God she doesn't stream on Twitch. I'd probably be simping. Let's see. Leslie will portray a new character on the show named Ryan Wilder. She is described as a likable, messy, a little goofy, and untamed. Wow, what fun. She's also nothing like Kate Kane, previously played by Ruby Rose. Oh no. She's so bold and new. Let's see, the one who wore the Batcape for blah blah blah, with no one in her life to keep her on track. Ryan spent years as a drug runner, dodging the GCPD and masking her pain with bad habits. And it sounds like every sort of party girl you've ever known. Am I right? Show of hands, how many women have you dated in your life? Master pain with drugs and being a wacky party girl. I know I got the wave here somewhere. Yeah, I'll show of hands how many girls you dated like this. Today, Ryan lives in her van with her plant. Wow, sounds like that YouTube girl. Remember the black girl on YouTube that had a plant and a snake? Janela and Elena, where me and Memeology exposed the fact that YouTube was artificially subbing people to her and commenting on her videos and stuff. And then Philip DeFranco said we were conspiracy theorists but wouldn't give our names because that would take him actually doing some journalism. Move on. Basically, dude, the writers for this, right? I'm reading this. A girl who was still milk for an alley cat and could also kill you with her bare hands. It sounds like a Tumblr character. Am I right? Sounds like some fan fiction from Twitter. Ryan is the most dangerous type of fighter, highly skilled, wildly undisciplined. She is also an out lesbian in 2020. Oh my God. Really? That's so brave and stunning. It's not like you see gay people all the time. She's so strong. Yeah, let's skilled warrior. All have athletic, raw, passionate, fallible. I think the whole thing about her is fucking fallible. And very much not your stereotypical all-American hero. Okay, so you're like trying to make black woman Deadpool / YouTube girl. You created a superhero character that sounds like the typical Twitter warrior, and you think they're gonna deal out justice correctly. Whatever. I don't know what to make of this, other than I think this is a last-ditch effort from the WB to save itself. It's like, okay, we're gonna try and save Batwoman. This is the move we're gonna make. If it doesn't catch on, it's canceled, and then we'll blame men for this because, you know, men are the biggest problem in 2020, not the coronavirus. We're worse than the coronavirus. Ugh. This is America. Social justice in my area. I got a virtue signal. I gotta cancel them. Yeah, I'm gonna get into this. Yeah, this is guerrilla war. Yeah, I'm gonna look up old tweets so I can cancel thee.
Before getting started, a word from today's sponsor, which is Hunter's Arena Legends, and personally, I've been absolutely loving the game so far. You might have actually noticed the footage in a couple of recent videos because I legitimately played for, I want to say like 6 hours at least during the stress test, and it was pretty engaging, it really was. It's a 60-player PvPvE hybrid MMO action combat last man standing type game, which kind of condenses the MMORPG leveling experience, which I find quite enjoyable, and the gear power progression all into a smaller round-based system. It comes to early access on July 15th, and we'll have 12 different classes to choose from. I think 20 different bosses and dungeons on the map right now, and the gameplay pacing is honestly really cool. Again, that's the game that you saw in some of my previous videos because I genuinely enjoyed playing it. You can follow the link down below to get the game. There are quite a few different modes, with more being developed all the time, and overall, I had a great deal of fun, so I'm happy that they chose to sponsor the channel. Again, Hunter's Arena Legends, link down below in the description, and it launches into early access on July 15th. Now onto the actual video. IGN, despite its very many flaws, is still an extremely large presence in gaming. The sentiment may be shifting as of late, especially in recent months and years, away from the larger mainstream publications, but some of these outlets do still command a hefty audience and rake in millions upon millions of views. IGN is among that group, but IGN also has a now inescapable amount of plagiarism that has been allowed to infect their various company branches. Here is where I need to define clearly what I mean by the word plagiarism in the digital video game industry, because it's not quite as simple as just copying something and then reposting, because the truth is, content gets reused constantly. There are those that cite material as a source, those that modify and transform, or those that use examples, references, and background footage from various different titles, or YouTubers, or games, whatever it is, because it lends itself well to the topic at hand. Creators, individual creators that is, will draw from each other rather often. In fact, the entire streaming and video game creator world, as well as much of the media for that matter, is simply predicated on a symbiotic relationship between that ecosystem and the game publishers. In truth, about 99% of everything you see with regards to video games could be terminated, if they wanted to, by major gaming companies who own that IP. So plagiarism actually has a very narrow definition here. That narrow scope, however, seems to be a larger than acceptable part of IGN's current operations, and today I want to examine the most recent instance as well as their response because the words they chose are extremely telling and really baffling. There's a brilliant moment in the Netflix series Ozark, which is kind of relevant here, where a drug kingpin asks the main character a question. I don't remember exactly what the words were, but the gist of it is this. My father walked in one day to catch his maid of 20 years stealing. What should he do? There were a few answers like, it's her first time, give her a warning, or, well, it hasn't happened before, so go easy on her, etc., etc. But eventually, the answer that really caught his attention was that he has to fire her. He has to. It's not the first time she was stealing, it's just the first time that she got caught. And this very clearly rings true of IGN, as evidenced more and more and more the longer time goes on. The first instance I am personally aware of is from 2018, where a reviewer by the name Philip Musin, who works for IGN, and I think that's how you pronounce his name, I really don't know, he was caught plagiarizing small YouTubers for his review content. And much the same way it is suspected by the kingpin in Ozark, the show, that the maid must have been stealing long before being first caught, it was correctly speculated by many others in the industry that Musin had been doing this for a long time. Well, he had. There were numerous additional instances discovered, and I won't cover them all now because they are a couple of years old at this point and really less relevant to the story, but the point is to establish that IGN has a history with plagiarism from its employees, and was forced to purge his entire body of work from their platform during the scandal, fearing the number of cases that might be discovered after that one first instance came to light. Skipping through time, we now land at today, or rather a couple of days ago, maybe a week or so by the time this video does come out because there's a sponsor, etc. But IGN Brazil on their Facebook page had reposted, I believe, 3 separate videos which showed a deepfake edit where celebrities' faces were placed on Mortal Kombat characters. I could be wrong about the number of times this occurred. IGN Brazil has deleted and modified their Facebook video archives at this point, but the basic gist is that they quite literally downloaded a video from a YouTuber and re-uploaded it to their own page as if it was their own work. That's not all though. They didn't just re-upload, they also deliberately cropped out his original watermark and inserted their own. However, they are so incompetent that they left part of his logo still visible, which allowed for very easy identification. Basically, think about the dumbest child in the 3rd grade class that you've ever met in your life, who rips a picture out of the illustrated, I don't know, Star Wars book, tears off half of the logo, but the other half is still there, signs his name next to the other half, and then runs around the class saying, "Look at this cool thing I drew. It was me that drew it." Now, this obviously got called out. It's just cosmically obvious that this was going to get noticed, but whatever. There was no way this would go unnoticed forever. It's inconceivable. But the response to that exposure was not proper, helpful, or sufficient. And if anything, it has made the entire situation worse. For one, when BabyZone, the YouTuber who was behind the original footage, that's his name, and I'll link to his channel down below, of course, when he found out, he filed a DMCA takedown on the videos via Facebook. He was rejected. This is alarming because if you really think about it, this is about the most obvious case you could ever imagine, where a huge company steals outright from a small creator, and when the smaller creator tries to defend their work, they get shut down. Before going further, I want to draw attention quickly to another media outlet called PC Gamer. PC Gamer had their own plagiarism scandal, I think just a few weeks ago, involving a YouTuber and his video about why League of Legends players hate Teemo. And everybody does hate Teemo, so it's very true. An article on their site was quite clearly ripped from this YouTuber's content, almost word for word, that YouTuber being JUgg99. And it had striking similarities right down to the champions that they used as examples in the article. Reddit had picked up on this, Jibei himself was aware, and the walls were closing in around them because this was quite obviously a case of plagiarized material. PC Gamer, however, in my personal opinion, responded in the best way possible, and they do deserve props for that. Again, in my opinion, some people may think it was inadequate, but I think it was pretty much perfect. They acknowledged the breach, they took down the article, and then, most importantly, they made it clear that they would no longer work with that particular freelancer and paid JUgg99 the equivalent amount of money that the article had earned. This is the most important piece because it demonstrated their genuine effort to make amends for this lapse and a financial willingness to take necessary steps. IGN is not so willing. Here is IGN Brazil's official response to BabyZone on Twitter. Hello, BabyZone YouTube. From the IGN Brazil team, we are deeply sorry for this. We understand our mistake and we deleted the video. This is not going to happen anymore, and we are committed to mention individual creators when we share videos in the future. This is atrocious, and they deserve every ounce of criticism for this horrible, horrible response. If we really boil this down, it is not sorry for what we did, it really truly is sorry we got caught. There is also a reference to deleting the video and no acknowledgement of the fact that this was not an isolated incident. Then there is nothing to address the fact that someone deliberately cropped out his logo and superimposed their own. And there is nothing to remedy the fact that these videos earned a hefty amount of money off of the content that was not theirs. Copyright law in the United States is exceedingly complicated, and I'm not a lawyer, so take this with a grain of salt. But one key aspect that I keep coming back to and that I do know about is that when a stolen body of work can serve as an adequate replacement for an original body of work, it makes the case far, far easier to pursue damages. One can very clearly argue that IGN Brazil's Facebook video depleted the number of views that BabyZone would get on his own edits. Served as a total replacement for those videos, was a lockstep replica, they just copy and pasted, and they financially harmed him in some capacity. People are currently comparing the Mortal Kombat videos to the Philip Mewson situation, and while there are definitely similarities, one of them is far worse. In the case of Philip Mewson, IGN actually reacted somewhat appropriately. They had an employee who did something wrong and they removed his work from their platform, etc. It turns out he had been doing these things for a very long time to their direct benefit, but they at least took moderate steps to address things properly in the moment. IGN Brazil is not taking those steps, even though their infraction is 10 times worse, seeing as they literally just downloaded content that was not theirs and then tried to disguise it as if it was their own. That really is worse. They're not taking financial steps, and their true response quite literally states, this is not going to happen anymore, because it has been happening in the past. This is just the first moment that Icarus flew too close to the sun and got burned. The issue of mentioning creators or giving credit is actually very straightforward. If I personally use a clip of someone else's video in my own, I put some sort of pop-up or link or tag, etc. If you use small segments of other creators' content to prove a point, that's really easy. But when you legitimately just cut, copy, and paste, that's a matter, and it's the whole thing, by the way, like the entire video is cut, copy, paste. That's not a matter of credit or mentioning someone. That is a matter of securing some sort of contractual right to use their holistic content, especially if they're monetizing it, and IGN monetizes practically everything that they do. They cannot simply modify their behavior going forward to continue copy-pasting people's original work to their Facebook page and then profiting directly from that with just a tiny little credit to so-and-so squeezed in somewhere. They need actual rights to that work, which I'm almost certain they will not be willing to do. It all keeps coming back to the maid analogy. We have now seen multiple instances that got thrown into the spotlight, but how many more exist that simply weren't caught or weren't caught yet? Compounding this concern is the fact that in one instance, the reply was fairly acceptable and decently adequate. But in the other, a much more severe series of infractions, by the way, the reply was infinitely more dismissive and shallow. I have no doubt that the community is now watching them like a hawk, and that additional circumstances will begin to present themselves. Because not only is it appealing to circumvent the laborious process of creating original work, it can also feel necessary to do if deadlines and production expectations become too intense. Alongside the issue of preventing or exposing issues of plagiarism in the industry, there should also be an analysis into the circumstances that motivate employees to do so in the first place. With IGN, this was just about as shallow, obvious, and lazy as you can possibly get. Is that because of deadlines? Is that because of... I really don't know, but I would argue that on par with ensuring that creators like Babyzone are not stolen from, with their work effectively devalued and replaced by a larger outlet, who then cropped out their logo or their watermark, etc., we should also be working to understand and prevent the circumstances that push anyone to such a tactic in the first place. In tandem with that, there needs to be some serious change within the Facebook DMCA system, because the fact that IGN can steal from a smaller creator and then get a DMCA takedown notice and just have Facebook go, nope, it's obviously stolen, but you're really big. Nah, we'll ignore it. That's a huge problem, and really cannot be allowed to persist as the status quo, because if it's happening here and gaining traction now, just like the thieving maid, it's a perfect example, it's happened before. We just didn't know about it. Not every creator has a massive audience to galvanize around them. Some just have to sit back and watch with no recourse. They just have to accept it. And that is incredibly unfair. But that's it. If you want to support, there are links down below. Merch, Patreon, Twitter, other social media, some other gaming YouTubers to support as well, but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.
I heard about publications being paid to use. Alright. Maybe I have to plagiarize.
Okay, so today is going to be a somewhat different format because I deliberately waited all weekend while researching and tracking social media in order to cover what I thought would be an emerging story, but apparently that isn't quite the case. The subject was Dr. Disrespect, who was banned without any explanation, sparking one of the greatest conspiracy theory festivals that Twitch has ever seen. When there is more clarity on this topic, I will absolutely cover it. I wanted to do a video about the saga of Dr. Disrespect from start to finish, or something like that, but since it seems apparent today is not the day, I will wrap some portions of that story up into a wider analysis of bans and deplatforming, which is happening all across the internet right now, from Twitch to YouTube and beyond. Obviously, the first point to make is that Dr. Disrespect was indeed permanently suspended by Twitch as a platform. Twitch refunded his current subscribers, Discord revoked his partnership on top of that, and even certain sponsors took down his name and his branding from their websites, only to put that material back up the following day, which has led to rampant speculation on why all of this has happened. It really is an interesting chain of events, from the eerie final moments of his last broadcast to theories about corporate espionage and competing platforms aiming to dethrone Twitch itself as the dominant presence in the streaming industry. However, all of that is best suited for a dedicated video by itself, of which there are many at this time, and I don't need to do my own analysis until we actually know the truth. But within the complex spiderweb of confusion, there is a key moment I want to focus on. Following his initial suspension/termination, Dr. Disrespect, and keep in mind this is a creator who has a multi-year, multi-million-dollar exclusivity contract with Twitch itself, signed not too long ago, but Following his initial ban, Dr. Disrespect finally made a statement after the speculation had kicked into complete overdrive that he did not in fact have any idea why he was banned at all. The strange thing is that a bunch of other streamers and industry insiders claim to have full knowledge, but conveniently won't say anything until others do, which puts them in a position of false credibility, because when the news finally does break, all they have to do is claim, "Yup, I knew, but I couldn't say because I'm so moral and ethical." I do believe that a select few of these individuals might know, but it is highly unlikely, downright impossible, honestly, for most of them to have any idea, because a secret from Twitch, locked down, and successfully, I might add, to such an extreme, is quite obviously something that would not be percolating the lower tiers of streaming personalities, else it would be common knowledge by now. The important part, zeroing in on the simple phrase that has been sadly overlooked by so many people thus far, is from Dr. Disrespect stating, "Twitch has not notified me on the specific reason behind their decision." That's alarming, more so than the ban itself even. That's unbelievably scary because if he is telling the truth, and to be clear, that's a big if right there, the structure of Twitch bans make it so that the streamer can simply say whatever they want about the issue, and Twitch themselves almost never speak publicly at all, letting one side of the narrative effectively control public perception entirely. But taking that at face value, it means that a company with exclusivity payments directly to a multi-million follower channel terminated that relationship without warning and is not even telling the streamer why. This matters for 100 separate reasons, but the largest among them is reasonable safety. Obviously, at this point, we don't know the motivations behind the ban, unless it's posted literally as I type this, but relatively speaking, with regards to my main point, it wouldn't really change anything, so not a big deal. The speculation is that it must be some sort of legal case, and asserted by a fellow streamer with plausible insider access in terms of relationships with Twitch executives. The decision was given to Trust and Safety by an outside department, insinuating that the legal team said, "It's over, now you ban him." Still, reducing this down to the most fundamental points, one of the largest streamers on the entire platform with an active exclusivity contract worth millions of dollars got permanently banned, claims to have no idea why, while others apparently know outside of the actual legal department at Twitch. And if this is taken at face value, how in the world can anyone on that entire platform have any faith in their own safety? If Twitch will terminate one of the largest and most powerful broadcasters on the internet, quite literally, with an active, personal, contractual, and financial relationship to and with them, how in the world can anyone else have any reasonable faith in their own job or platform security? That, however, is just the start. This also comes in a time period where many creators are being deplatformed, and the atmosphere is becoming more and more curious surrounding all of it. Perhaps the most high-profile suspension in history is United States President Donald Trump, whose campaign was suspended from Twitch for hateful conduct, which involved the deletion of 2 rally streams, one from as far back as 2016. The context here is not fully clear, but factoring in the reality that certain groups have claimed that Donald Trump is a racist, xenophobic, bigoted individual, a whole bunch of different things for many years, and advocated during that time that he be deplatformed, why is this decision only coming down now? This is, again, just the start. Twitch has also been reckoning over the past week or so with a deluge of sexual assault allegations, and their response was a commitment to investigate and ban based on those claims, with law enforcement referrals when necessary, which is, if done right, to be fair, an excellent approach. We have already seen the effects of this, and a streamer named Loco, as well as another by the name Slasher, seem to have chronicled a few of the bans that coincide with allegations as documented by a long and growing spreadsheet that emerged some time ago. I Am Spoon, Bless RNG, Warwitch TV, Dreaded Cone, Wolf21, and at this stage, undoubtedly many more, have been banned as a result of these proceedings. And as far as I can tell, there is an element of confession behind a few of these, at least 2, I think, which makes it fairly self-explanatory as to why they were permanently suspended. But in a case where the perpetrator or accused legitimately does not know, or has not somehow publicly confessed to certain allegations, the lack of clarity in response to the question, "Why was I banned?" or "Why were they banned?" is frankly unacceptable. With all that said, it really is still just the start because the lack of clarity extends all the way to internal circumstances as well. Hassan Bokhari, a well-known Twitch staff member, has been publicly accused of inappropriate conduct, which will be rightly referred to as allegations until proven. But this accusation has been met with absolute silence, from both him and Twitch, despite containing truly troubling material. Some ordinary gamers did an excellent video diving deeper into this topic, in much the same way I believe most people, or many people at least, have overlooked the important claim of Dr. Disrespect that he does not have clarity from Twitch on their decision, at least not yet. Some ordinary gamers outlined an important line from the allegations against Hassan, in which it is alleged that he used a partner intake form to acquire a girl's private phone number to then text her. On top of this, there are lengthy claims about how he would share revenue contracts, dashboard analytics, work emails, ban decisions, and even company secrets, though there is little in the way of evidence to define what that part actually means. This, if true, is catastrophic. The sexual and emotional claims are far more subjective, ill-defined, and honestly hard to analyze, because in one breath there are claims that she would text him things like, I can't wait to kiss you, I love kissing you, I can't wait for, or to do various explicit things, but in the other there are accusations that his behavior was unacceptable and unwanted. It's not my place to delve deeper into that side of things, really, it just isn't. But the important point to highlight is that as of the making of this video, no visible action has been taken by Twitch with regards to this particular case, where other cases, seemingly less severe in nature, have had drastic, often unclearly defined or flat out mysterious in nature, actions taken on behalf of or against them, and this inconsistency is reaching critical mass. On the one hand, Twitch promotes a controversial figure who expresses a sentiment such as, I have power and you can't take it away from me, people should be afraid of me, and Twitch promotes that person to a position of power, a trust and safety council of all things, ironically, while on the other, they take exorbitant and swift action against some cases, while seemingly turning a blind eye to more severe and pressing infractions within their own corporate structure. They have a high-ranking staff member who allegedly utilized his position in a host of inappropriate ways, not just one, but their focus is turned towards banning the president for comments that he made 4 years ago. I can understand and support their decision to evenly enforce their terms of service, even when it applies to the president or large, highly profitable broadcasters on their platform. But consistency is the last thing that can ever be said about Twitch. But here comes the most interesting part. None of this is confined to just Twitch right now. Reddit has just now banned over 2,000 communities. These communities are not necessarily politically homogenous either, but they do seem to trend towards the conservative end of the spectrum. That being said, there are examples from the opposite side as well contained in that giant, enormous list. And the motivation for this massive purge is a crackdown on hate speech, which overhauled the company's policy with regards to what content it will now police. Here is where we all need some intellectual fortitude, I like to call it, because it may seem easy to say, well, that's just hate speech, only racists would want that around, so it's good it's all getting purged. And sure, that's a valid train of thought that holds up for all of 2 milliseconds, till you realize that isn't actually true. It is not all hate speech, and this is a reactionary maneuver to pacify a movement that does not even know what it actually wants. The current activist movement, not just in the United States either, but in many other countries around the globe, has lost all reason and consistency, much like Twitch. Haha. For example, what started as an endeavor to tear down Confederate monuments, something that can be explained and justified, with an effort to transition these to a purely historical context, like museums, for example. That's not what happened, though. They just want to tear them down and destroy them, not rightly place them in the archives of history. They want them gone because they are offensive. What started as a possibly defensible transitional period devolved consistently. After Confederate generals, it was Christopher Columbus. The movement made a transition to anti-colonization, while forcefully claiming and occupying, ironically, a section of Seattle under that guise. Then it mutated again. Statues of George Washington were defaced, a founding father of this nation, without whom America would simply not exist. And if we trace back through these recent hectic weeks, we can see that towards the beginning, the Lincoln Memorial had its steps vandalized. The president who fought a civil war against the Confederate generals whose statues are being torn down. How does that make any sense? How about Philadelphia and the monument of Matthias Baldwin, an outspoken abolitionist who had his statue defaced with the words colonizer and murderer? This movement has no defined message. This is not an effort to eliminate any one social construct. It is anarchist anger that blindly lashes out at whatever is put in front of it. And by now, many people are probably thinking, I have completely derailed from the title and the topic, but bear with me, because all of this ties back into the reactionary tactic by Reddit, Twitch, YouTube, and probably soon Twitter as well, to ban over 2,000 communities as a direct response to outrage and pushback that has been self-contradicting and changing since the moment it all began. Reddit is not doing this because those communities legitimately pose an existential threat to society. It is doing this because a movement predicated on outrage and control has demanded they eliminate the opposition. Simultaneously, though a direct link is not really visible, YouTube has suspended Stefan Molyneux, David Duke, American Renaissance, Richard Spencer, and about 25,000 more channels, some of whom are very outspoken conservative pundits or commentators with real radical views, but many are not. And the synchronicity here is impossible to ignore. Now, there needs to be some clarity here. These platforms are currently in hot water right now with regards to Section 230 protections and their ability to censor or control what is and is not posted by their users. But as it stands, they are absolutely able and willing to pick and choose what content is made available. That is entirely within their right under current laws. And on a personal, very opinionated note, as it stands, I do not really fundamentally disagree with them defining terms of service and then enforcing them. The problem is when they consistently change those terms and react to social outrage with new policies that necessitate new bans, new cleanses, and new purges. What we see is a consistent and devolving platform that will restrict with ever-increasing ferocity what is commonly perceived as unacceptable. But common perception of what is and is not acceptable has nothing to do with actual moral or ethical clarity, and everything to do with social norms. Somehow, some way, the modern social justice movement has convinced itself that the current snapshot of societal beliefs that they hold is paramount to perfection. This is the right way. Nothing previously was, and nothing in the future will be either, unless it supports what we believe here and now in this very moment. This becomes weaponized with boycotts, protests, and other forms of pushing their agenda onto big tech platforms. And the big tech platforms themselves are obviously swayed by these efforts, be it external or internal. The result is that we see bans becoming widespread and normal, content purges that systematically shrink the circle of acceptable discourse, whether that be on or off platform in the case of Twitch, which has an official policy that off-platform actions can result in a suspension or ban on platform. We see constantly modified expectations of what is and is not acceptable humor and acceptable statements in a way that contradicts itself more often than not and almost always catches innocent parties in the crossfire who have no actual relation to what is now being targeted, whether that be a certain meme, a certain hand gesture, or any sort of symbolism or language. Let's bring it full circle now, finally. This may seem so far removed from the initial examples that it makes no sense, but when we remember that lack of clarity is a central pillar to this discussion, it all should become connected. Platforms are wielding the ban hammer like a machine gun right now, an absolute machine gun, with little to no clarity on why or who is next, while constantly changing what parameters they even operate by. To make things even worse, there are rampant examples of users and content that should, under existing guidelines, even if I disagree with those guidelines, they should be targeted, but they're not for some reason. Or perhaps, though, through a lack of communication, they are, but no one knows. When you have social discourse platforms reacting to public pressure, but that public pressure literally evolves by the day, how can any freethinker justify that reality? The slippery slope fallacy should, at this point, to any competent human being, be proven as anything but a fallacy when applied to the shifting standards of censorship, banning, or deplatforming in modern big tech. Today, it's those 2,000 Reddit communities and those 25,000 YouTube pages. It's those streamers who have been accused of whatever it is they've been accused of, or those channels that have, who knows in some cases, but it's, as of right now, apparently sometimes not the ones in power, executing abuses of the systems. Today, it is various creators who have strayed too close to the ever-evolving definitions of what is and is not against policy. And truly, if you take a look at the list of communities that have been banned on Reddit or channels that have been stricken from YouTube, it's a diverse cast of characters and personalities. It really isn't one-sided. It absolutely isn't. This isn't some kind of really well-defined thing that targeted a bunch of actually hateful individuals. This is a vast expansion on what they are getting rid of for really ill-defined reasons. But anyways, today it is various creators who have strayed too close to those evolving definitions, but tomorrow can be an entirely new set of users with no explanation who up till that very moment existed within the confines of what was acceptable. And if you move the goalpost a foot every single day, eventually you aren't even on the field anymore. Effectively, control itself is spiraling out of control because shifting expectations and evolving social norms for how one can speak, behave, or post content, when that evolution occurs at a faster rate than natural human behavior can be taught or modified, leads to an effect where clarity, stability, and safety are increasingly limited. There is a seemingly synchronized content purge taking place as of this video, right alongside some of the most nebulous creator bans I have ever seen in my entire career, and all of it paints a picture of control that has itself become uncontrollable. But that's it. I'll be doing a deep dive at some point in the future on why exactly this parallel wave of bans has popped up, because the myth of true corporate autonomy is an absolute sham. The reality is that if you trace backward through the pyramid of infrastructure, it can easily be seen that ACH payment processing providers have an absolute stranglehold on the operations of almost any business.
That's true.
Not only in the country, but around the world. So their dictation of what is and is not allowed for their customers in terms of hosted content is practically absolute. But that by itself will take a long time to analyze and will need a great deal more time. If you want to support, there are links down below: merch, Patreon, Twitter, other social media, and other gaming creators support as well, but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.
Resistances were higher. Or enough.
Okay, today I want to go back to a franchise that basically jump-started this entire channel, and that is the Division series. Back in the day, for those that don't already know, I exclusively covered the original Division game, making a series of guides, builds, tips, and walkthroughs as an educational channel for that specific title. At various points, myself and my team members went out to actually work on the game itself. We had our community name placed in the official trailer for the Division 2, and the truth is I owe a lot to that game and the developers in terms of where I am now and where this channel came from. Now, despite a sort of rift, I guess, that formed between myself and that series, where I simply just lost interest, got sick of certain issues, and found myself mentally fatigued to the point where I completely stepped away to build a broader industry-wide channel focus, I still track the goings-on and follow what is happening, because 3,000, 4,000, I don't know what it exactly was, what it finally ended up being, but it was a lot. After thousands of hours of invested time into that franchise, I couldn't just leave completely. The background of this video right now, however, is really old footage. I haven't played in quite a while, nor do I actually want to, but what I did do was tune into the race for World's First with the new raid that just released yesterday. I was glued to the screen for maybe 6, 7 hours, something like that, I don't know, and it was extremely fun to watch. I also personally know quite a few of the people who were competing, and it was fun to watch them sweat it out against each other. However, while watching, and especially in the aftermath, it became clear that there is a pretty intense issue that developers and players are now grappling with. To set the stage, we need to talk about Destiny. Destiny, as a franchise, is known for a number of things, but among those focal points are the raids. Destiny, developed by Bungie, has become somewhat of a spectacle when expansions get launched because there will be a competition for World's First, and the winners will be immortalized by Bungie themselves for their accomplishments. There have been quite a few of these races won by various different groups and clans over the years, and I always knew of these events, but never really participated to a point that I actually wanted to compete. However, when Destiny 2 came along, after grinding out 2 of my 3 characters and maxing their power level in advance of the Leviathan raid release, I decided to make a go of it. The results were honestly predictable. We weren't even close to winning. It had less to do with a legitimate effort to actually complete the entire thing first, and more to do with just enjoying the new content at the same time as everyone else. But the point was, I finally participated for myself. The experience was honestly great, and I didn't really keep up with that franchise either, but I look back fondly on those memories. However, it turned out that for the next available race, which was the Leviathan Prestige version, which is effectively the same raid but with some minor tweaks and a difficulty bump, a sort of scandal took place. Clan Redeem, the winners of that particular event, could be heard on their comms on public live streams using a coil glitch, which effectively means that they were exploiting the game's code in order to gain an advantage. It will honestly never be known how many other players in the race did that exact same thing on separate teams, but the point is, a debate was sparked about the morality and fairness of using an exploit in official competition. That's not the end of it though. The debate for this particular topic is rather heated. Some say it's in the game, the developers made mistakes that facilitate this, so why shouldn't you use it? Others say it's absolutely not intended, so the honor system of moral character should dictate that no one uses it at all. But to make things even more confusing, that was not the first or the last time that Bungie would grapple with the effects of exploitation in their races. The most important and recent instance, at least I believe it is, revolved around the mechanic called the Forge. And by the way, same as with the Division, I simply don't have current footage of Destiny 2, so what you see is very, very old. It's practically from launch day itself. It's just really all I have. The Forge, without too much detail here, allowed for an AFK farming method that would raise your light or power level faster than almost anything else in the game, and the effect was that players could ramp up their character's strength in a way that circumvented the intended systems. This is important because the same way we can never know how many players actually utilized a coil glitch in the Prestige race, we can never know how many players simply used the Forge farming to get their characters to a power level where they could compete for World's First, when without it they would not have been ready to do so. Point is, the reaction to these various different circumstances, just to name a few, there are undoubtedly more, have been somewhat skewed, and the complexity of how to grapple with the idea of cheating in video games is anything but straightforward. From the Destiny community, there was a fairly vocal pushback to the concept of coil glitching during the actual race, which involved ammunition for a specific weapon. However, there was almost no discernible outrage, relatively speaking, over the concept of forge farming in the pre-raid weeks for a separate event. One was an active advantage in the competition, meaning the players had to physically execute a series of moves to achieve a result. The other was an active advantage before the competition, without which they never could have even entered or competed. But that time, it was, again relatively speaking, completely below the radar. One reason for this might have to do with common conscience, and what I mean by that is that farming exploits in Destiny are almost part of the very fabric of the game. The Loot Cave version 2, the various IO token farming methods, or any number of alternatives where farming, AFK farming, glitching for gear and engrams, or whatever else are widely used by a massive section of the community. There really is no practical binary difference in terms of how any of these events impact the world's first raid competition. One occurs before, without which they couldn't even compete. One occurs during, to shave off some time on the actual boss kill, but the simple yes-no difference is that they do affect the outcome of the competition through the use of unintended mechanics. This brings us finally to Division 2 and the Iron Horse raid. Like I said, I personally know, honestly, I think most of the players and team leaders who competed. I don't know how far I would say that stretches, a few conversations on the one hand down to having beers together for some on the other. However, the point here is that once again, there were unintended mechanics that got utilized, as well as unintended information out in the wild which affected the outcome of this race. The difference here is not really with the effect, it is more so with the reaction. The Division community is, as far as I can tell, pretty much outraged over this, and I've seen many different positions taken, but there is a noticeably fiercer animosity than what I ever witnessed in my entire lifespan with Destiny or Destiny 2. This could be the case for a variety of separate reasons, but I would argue that one of the most important factors to consider is the developers themselves. Much the same way that Destiny has had huge swaths of its player community engage in glitching or exploitation, the Division as a franchise is practically built on them like a foundation. For years, there have been bugs that made their way into the meta experience. Masks that were 100% active, regenerating life for months before being fixed. Infinite damage bugs, infinite loot bugs, you name it, it happened. Some of the best gear in the first game for like an entire patch, I think, was just broken and scaled multiplicatively instead of how it was intended. Basically, the franchise was more glitch than game for half the time, so the players operated in that framework. Flash forward to today, and the same is pretty much true for the sequel, but the response has changed. there is a sort of whack-a-mole infinite damage bug that players use to get huge amounts of gear, and historically, for years, the developers would fix that kind of exploit and then just move on. But this time, they banned players for, I think it was 14 days, I'm not really sure, causing a player base decline, massive community backlash, and confusion on how exactly they would handle these types of issues going forward. Well, that is still unclear because in the lead up to this new Iron Horse raid, some players engaged in SHD farming tactics, which is just an endgame progression mechanic basically, to get hundreds of levels, which let them participate in the raid itself. This is practically identical to what happened in Destiny, but is being met with a very different community response. The player I will focus on is Marco-Style, and I'm not doing this to call him out individually. I'm doing this because 1, I consider us friends, we've collaborated in the past. 2, I don't think he honestly gives a shit about any of this. And 3, he is the easiest and most high-profile example. I don't doubt at all that there are others, but this is just the best to showcase. Marco-Style used the SHD farming bug to get ready for the raid. His account was not banned, while others who didn't use the exploit were banned, though infrequent false positives did in fact happen, which highlights first and foremost inconsistency on the part of the developers. But second, as the community backlash against him continues to grow, it shows a completely different reaction between two communities. Destiny, where relatively speaking no one cared about Forge engram farming, and Division, where players have no idea if they will even be banned for exploits, and some get exceedingly angry at anyone who ever uses them. This wasn't the end though. Marco-Style also came forward and stated he had insider knowledge of the raid beforehand, and a teammate of his posted publicly a dossier on the new raid itself with a huge list of mechanics and gameplay elements and various other things, which absolutely looks like a formal internal Ubisoft communication, and 100% altered their existing knowledge of what to expect. There is a noticeable amount of backlash to this, and it's, as of right now, continuing to expand. Insider knowledge has been a speculated reality for these Division 2 races for quite some time, and though it may be a smaller and lesser known version of what Destiny 2 currently does with its own competitions, if the game wishes to grow in that way, which it clearly does, it will need to clarify some of these things sooner rather than later. What is not being taken into consideration, however, is that Wids, a teammate of Marco-Style in this race, and someone else I do personally know, I should state that their team came in second, not first, but they were squad mates on an 8-man second-place team. Wids posted data mined information weeks earlier, which contained some of the same language, I believe. I can't sit here and tell you whether or not it was all from this dossier or not, whether it was data miners or an insider leaking it to them directly, but the question needs to be asked: what is the proper way to handle all of this? And why are the reactions between separate communities so drastically different? It's not even a new question. Is exploiting acceptable or unacceptable? Some say it's in the game, and it is, so how could they expect you not to use it? Others say it's immoral and clearly unintended, so you obviously shouldn't. But when so much of player versus player competition, in any capacity by the way, be it a race or an actual player versus player match, revolves around metagaming, and metagaming is the effort to find any and every discernible advantage possible, how do you rein that in subjectively based on individual circumstances? These world's first races have highlighted a very real need for consistency. How is information like this even getting out into the wild? What will the response be to an active glitch in the raid instance itself? What will the response be when there are glitches before the instance, but they become necessary for certain teams in the lead up to competition? Why is it that some glitches get the ban hammer, but others don't? Why is it that some people who use the same glitch as others get the ban hammer and others don't? No one knows, because there is no consistent policy. Until Massive and Bungie and all developers who host this sort of event, really, until they moderate with consistency and lay out clear-cut rules, there will be an atmosphere of confusion, a sense of anything goes, and a skewed backlash based on nothing but an emotional response by players in the face of identical issues from elsewhere, all because being first, without structure, intrinsically does mean use everything at your disposal to do so. Honestly, these competitions are basically the closest thing that the Division will ever get to esports, and they rake in tens of thousands of viewers. They're not a small thing. They truly are an event, and unless you want every single event to end in controversy and disaster and just marred reputation for a whole lot of people and developers, and just, if you want every single one to be a total disaster, if you don't want that, I should say, you need to have actual rules, structure, and consistent expectations for them. But that's it. If you want to support, there are links down below: merch, Patreon, Twitter, other social media, another gaming YouTuber to support as well, but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.
Okay. Maybe.
What about that samurai knife? Some people have a samurai knife.
What can I say about The Last of Us that hasn't already been said? This game has been out for 4 years now and has received its own remaster, in addition to hundreds of awards for all elements of its construction, and it is getting a sequel sometime in the near future. Now, while I cover a lot of older games on this channel, none of them are held in such high esteem as The Last of Us, and so I've been battling myself on how exactly I should approach this video. On the one hand, if I do a straightforward critique of narrative and gameplay systems, I'll be criticized for reiterating what someone else said years ago and for being unoriginal. But on the other hand, I could simply analyze the game's story and try to provide some meaningful commentary on what many people consider to be a masterpiece. And so, being that I'm very non-committal, I've decided to do both. I'm going to go through the narrative very carefully from beginning to end, and I will also critique the gameplay without holding back. And don't worry, timestamps will be included in the description for those of you who like to watch these longer videos in parts. I have also uploaded this video to SoundCloud in case you want to listen to these long-form videos like a podcast as I do. Again, links to all of this in the description. Before we get started, I'll just quickly clarify that I've played The Last of Us 5 times now, twice on my own, once with my girlfriend, and twice for this video specifically, one of those times on the grounded difficulty, which is the hardest one there is. And in full disclosure, I do consider The Last of Us to be one of the greatest games ever made, especially from a narrative perspective, and we'll explain why I think that as we go through. But with that said, let's get started. As usual, I would like to thank the people over at The Last of Us Wiki for compiling so much useful information. They really helped out with the making of this video, and I'm going to use certain excerpts from that wiki. So if you're interested in the lore, the world, and weird details about The Last of Us as a video game, I highly recommend that you go over there and check it out. I will also be referencing and clipping certain segments of a documentary called Grounded, the Making of The Last of Us many times throughout this video. So if you see clips or background filler footage of people in weird suits performing scenes from the game, then that's what that is. It's actual behind the scenes footage from the making of the game. As we go through the narrative, I'm going to be pulling from this documentary as well so that you can hear what the actors actually were saying, what the creative director was saying about the scene when they were creating it, to give you the complete look at what exactly made The Last of Us so uniquely amazing. And as I'm sure you could have guessed, a link to the full version will be in the description below. The game opens up by introducing the player to the protagonist of the game, Joel, a single father living near Austin, Texas, with his only daughter, Sarah. He comes home late one night, talking on the phone with his brother Tommy, Sarah's uncle, and he finds Sarah asleep on the couch, and after waking her up, she gives him a brand new wristwatch because it is, after all, his birthday. They both crack a few jokes, but soon after, Sarah falls asleep and Joel takes her up to her bed and tucks her in. A few hours later, Sarah is awoken by frantic phone calls from her uncle Tommy, the same guy Joel was on the phone with earlier. He happens to be looking for Joel, but the call gets disconnected in the middle of their conversation. So naturally, Sarah gets up, and this is the first time the player gets control of any character in the game. Now, the opening of any story, whether you're talking about a video...
Nope. I don't want to deal with that. There's a channel trailer. Oh man.
$8! You want $8 for blue, red, and a bunny! You want $8 for blue, bunny, red! If I find fucking blue... Oh, I'm sorry, it's fucking shiny blue! Oh, well, fucking that is... Oh, that's great now, isn't it? Oh, well, good for you! What is this? What is this, fucking dragons? Are you out of your mind? 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 $95 for a fucking skin? Are you fucking kidding me? You're going way too far. What the fuck is this shit? What is that? Is that fucking blue? Is that still fucking blue? And you got and that's that was the first one that you put. And the second one is a fucking bunny. You're doing this on purpose to me. You're trying to kill me, Valorant. Don't you fucking buy this shit. Don't none of you buy this shit. I swear to God, Valorant, you have literally the worst fucking payment model. The worst.
Yo, man, Dragons. Thanks for the follow, man. Oh no.
Camelot 331 here, and GameStop. I know I say this a lot. GameStop's absolutely killing it right now. They are killing it, man. And by killing it, I mean killing their associates' morale and possibly their associates with what's going on and making them work. Well, that's another story. But GameStop recently announced they lost nearly $170 million. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, man, like what was the time frame? Like a year? Like 10 years? How long did it take them to lose that money? 1 quarter. 3 months into 2020, $170 million. You know how many Ferraris that is? That's like at least 700, maybe. I don't know. I don't know math. I'm from Alabama. They didn't teach us math, unfortunately, there. But I have a good idea, okay? A good idea of how many goats I could trade for $170 million. And by the way, there's been a big announcement on the corporate office level. A corporate associate reached out to me and let me know something a little insane. So before we get into it, make sure you give this video a big old thumbs up doodle and make sure you subscribe if you haven't. So first off, take a look at this. I'm going to read this to you. Take a look at this. First quarterly results for GameStop, that being February to April. Here it is right here. Total global comparable sales decreased 17%, excluding stores that are closed, meaning that comparable store sales actually decreased by 30%. And obviously George Sherman, the CEO, blamed a lot of other things except for GameStop's business model as to why they're failing. Of course he did. That's what they do. Look at this right here. Operating loss of $108 million compared to operation earnings of $17 million the prior year's first quarter. So last year they made $17 million. This year they lost 108 in just 1 year. Holy mother of God. Net loss of $165.7 million or $2.57 per diluted share. And right here, this is a big one. Adjusted net loss of $103 million, million compared to the adjusted net income last year of 7.5 million. Holy mother of God. That is insane. Think about how staggering that is. $103 million versus a gain of 7. That's not a good thing. But not only are sales and everything else damn possible down. Everything's damn down, son. Not only that, the funnest damn part about working at GameStop, pretty much the only fun part, was conference, which has been canceled and replaced with something outrageously dumb as hell. Take a gander at this. Look at this. I'm totally bummed conference is canceled. It's a nice getaway from the store, a chance to mingle with our peers and create a rapport with those we work together with. It's also a nice refresher before the holiday season kicks off. Now, I get why it's canceled. It's for our safety and staff, since, you know, we didn't get a lot of that in March. The conference call, watch it. However, let's talk about the schedule for it. Every Wednesday from the last week of August until Black Friday, we're going in early, 2 to 3 hours to watch whatever is happening. Some SLs drive over an hour each way, so just seeing that won't be worth it. But I'm guessing since it seems we still open at noon for the foreseeable future, we may work that day also. It's going to be a long day. So what they're saying is instead of going to some kick-ass place and having fun, you're going to have to come in early on Wednesdays, 2 to 3 hours early, even if you don't work. Shocking. And do some training on the computer. Wow. This is much better. And they didn't get any pay bump, and they're cutting bonuses everywhere. But who gets to keep their bonus? We're coming up to that. I guess anyone who's upset it's a specific day and before open is being called an entitled child. Let me just ask this. Did you also consider the future of this happening? Some SLs work their family care in our apartments around our free days. Some DMs are strict on what days can be taken and when. If they follow the manual closely, then let's just say you're there for every single training. Essentially, you will never have a week where you have 2 days off in a row. It will always be Sunday and Thursday. And with how hours are right now, how many SLs cannot work 44 hours and need to also do partial unemployment? If we're still going with these hours and coverage we have now, this is just going to add fuel to the fire that's quickly burning out many individuals. Please do not think I'm poo-pooing on the event team by any means. I'm sure some higher-ups had a hand in planning. I would just hope there are some SLs who they would consult. Of course they're not going to do that. They don't even talk to their SL. It's all upper hands. That's it. No one else. GameStop doesn't give a damn about its workforce. You could see that in March, when people were basically going into their deaths. GameStop didn't give a damn. They still don't give a damn. They would let their grandparents die for like $7 probably. They don't care. I guess my point of this post is that I hope corporate can change what's needed before we start having people drop like flies, because a lot of us are struggling and getting burnt out. Conference was a good time to combat that burnout and being hyped, and a lot of us are just having a hard time getting hyped up. Shocking. But of course, GameStop Reddit's doing the same thing they always do. And if someone says anything negative about GameStop, they're just an entitled child. That's what it says. Everyone who has a valid criticism is an entitled child. That's pretty much everything on the GameStop Reddit, because everybody on the GameStop Reddit is the ride or die GameStop people that would literally die for the company. They would take a bullet in the face if the CEO sent them a message to do so. That's what these people are. And then again, look at this. I typically don't like to talk bad about the company. I like my job a lot. I'm good at it. I think it's fun. Even when the stuff was ramping up, I didn't even complain. I don't talk bad about GameStop and defend it when appropriate. That said, I hate the virtual conference this year. Another person. Remember, they canceled conference. They're going to have to go in Wednesdays early and just do computer training. That's so dumb. And they're required to be there. It's not like they can just not be there. No, they have to be there. I know they put a lot of work to get a plan in, but I hate it. I enjoy getting away from the store and hanging out with my peers. The idea of training at the store before open once a week for up to 4 months is pretty horrible, in my opinion. Yeah, I wouldn't be doing it. Sorry, I'm so glad I'm not there. I'd be like, yeah, bye. And look at this, every single person. The in-store requirement is driving me nuts. I can't get hyped up in a 2 to 3 hour period. The worst part is they made it sound universally better than regular conference. Yeah, I doubt it. I'm concerned that this is what conference is now in the future. Yeah, there's not going to be another one, son. This is it. This is a really sad whimper to go out on. Now let's hit some of these messages, like the one that corporate sent me and the memo that they sent me about the bonuses this year. Check this out. You're about to be blown away. First message. I don't know if you heard, but they canceled GameStop conference this year. We instead are having to go in every Wednesday early for training for a couple hours, and it is required. I loved conference, and this is just terrible. I don't even work Wednesdays, and my store is over an hour away. Wow. They talked it up like it's going to be way better than flying out to Vegas. But it's an absolute nightmare. I'm so scared that this is what conference is going to be like forever now because of how much money it's saved. Again, probably not going to be another one. This is crazy. Instead of flying all their associates somewhere or maybe just rescheduling, no. Or maybe doing local events. Maybe just consider social distancing, wear a mask, and do something local for your team. No! You're going to make them go in early and train for 2 to 3 hours along with their work day. And if they're off, sorry. They're working 6 days that week. It's insane. I'm so glad I'm not involved. But what about the bonuses? This is the most important thing. The bonuses. What's going to happen with these bonuses, man? Where's all the money going to be going? Okay, because they're announcing no pay increases for any of their associates in the company, well, obviously. And also, some bonuses are going away. Let's read this message from the corporate office that someone sent me. It's going to blow your socks off. Your feet are going to be cold as hell. And I'm probably going to be liable. So please don't sue me for your cold ass feet. Here we are. Look. Hey, corporate life at GameStop is getting bad. They announced to the whole corporate office that us low on the rung corporate associates are no longer getting bonuses. They said no one will be getting bonuses except for directors and executives.
Wow.
Oh, George Sherman, you got away with it again, son. He's gonna get his bonus. Lucky him, huh? So of course the CEO and they're all gonna get their bonuses. Of course. This is unbelievable considering the people that need and rely on these bonuses the most will not be getting them. But of course the executives are getting them. What even is the point? Now let's take a look at this memo. It says, here are the key takeaways of the incentive program changes. The changes. Short-term incentives, or bonus. The new bonus plan eligibility levels beginning at the manager level compensation grades and above. Based on this plan eligibility, your position is not eligible for a bonus in fiscal year 2020, son. Now look at the bottom here. We understand there is a balance between the positive news of restored salaries and the reality of the right size incentive eligibility for fiscal year 20. As these were not easy decisions, of course, not easy decisions. Think about this for a second. They say this isn't an easy decision, but they're not giving away their bonuses, right? They're taking it from other people. It sounds like a pretty damn easy decision to me, you greedy sons of bitches. This was not an easy decision, promise me. And it's like, the guy that made the decision gets to keep his bonus. What the Sam hell are you talking about? This wasn't an easy decision. God, corporate life, man. I hate corporate people. I hate them. Ooh, I hate them, son. There's something about it, man. Just makes me just want to slap things in the damn face. Maybe on the ass cheek. I don't know. But I'm pretty pissed. We appreciate that each of you grasp the magnitude of the situation. Thanks for accepting it. And share the commitment to our goals to maintain our long-term health and vibrancy as a company. Shocking. Thanks for giving us your bonus so the company can be vibrant and healthy. Wow. Wow. I'm so damn shocked. I really am. So there it is. GameStop announced they lost almost $170 million last quarter. The most they've ever lost by like 40 times over. Literally. Because last year they made $7 million. They made $7 million. And also remember, this is something to remember. Remember when I said they were going to close down a bunch of stores? Well, on the first quarterly report, it says GameStop temporarily closed all 3,500 of their locations. They had 4,400, just last October. But no one's saying anything. They're slowly closing them, and we're only halfway through 2020. Remember what I said. It's slowly happening. Slowly. 1,000 down, 1,000 more to go. So 170 million lost. They canceled conference and they're making their associates come in on Wednesdays to train for it. And also, no one's getting a bonus except for executives. The jokes write themselves. I don't even have to be funny anymore. We could just end the YouTube channel. Camelot's done. GameStop's the damn comedian now. Ain't even me. It's over, son. So what do you think? What do you think? That's pretty damn insane. I want to know what you think. Those poor souls at GameStop getting crushed. How is there anybody still working there? I don't know. So if you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, dude, like it, and please subscribe. Don't forget, I stream Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday at 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Check it out, and follow me on Instagram and Twitter. That's real damn important. Message me if you want to get your voice heard. So make sure you do me a favor. Make sure you get on it. Doggone it. Bye. Oh, yeah. I'm not even overreacting. Wow. I hadn't expected to smell that good. Yeah. What the fuck's wrong with me?
It was February 1990. Nintendo of America was about to release one of their biggest games of all time, Super Mario Bros. 3. And the hype was real. Super Mario Bros. 3 came out a year and a half earlier in Japan, and even in a time before internet, North American gamers knew all about it. Throughout 1989, magazines printed previews and teasers. A major Hollywood movie showed off the game. Some stores even sold import or bootleg versions of the game. But Super Mario Bros. 3 was more than just another game in the series. It proved that Nintendo and Super Mario Bros. Were not a fad. And even with competition from other companies, Nintendo was still the king of video games. This is the story of how one game captured the hearts and minds of an entire generation of players. This is the story of Super Mario Bros. 3. By the summer of 1986, Mario fever had officially hit Japan. Nintendo's Super Mario Bros. For the Famicom was a smash hit, selling more than 3 million copies. The country's best-selling book was Super Mario Bros. The Complete Strategy Guide, which contained tips and tricks on how to beat the game. The Mario Bros. Theme song was given lyrics and released as a single, Go Go Mario.
Haunted. I'll go over there. Why not? ICP. Death Haven.
I want to think that there is no God because people like juggalos exist.
No.
What's up, everybody? I'm Finn McKenty. This is the Punk Rock NBA, and welcome back to my Most Hated Bands series. This is where I talk about bands that people hate, and I try to figure out exactly why they feel the way they do, and what we can learn from it, because anytime people feel that strongly about anything, I think there's something to be learned from like a marketing and consumer psychology perspective. This is episode number 6, I think. I've done quite a few of these. Today we're going to be talking about 3 bands: Insane Clown Posse, Tekashi 6ix9ine, and Def Heaven. But before we get into that, first, if you have not yet followed me on Instagram, I would love it very much if you would do that. There's a link to that in the description. And also, I want to thank NordVPN for sponsoring this video. Let's talk about internet privacy and security for a minute, because if you haven't been thinking about it, you should be. Hacks and identity fraud are more and more common, and let me tell you, it is no fun to go through that stuff, and that is where NordVPN comes in. If you're not familiar, essentially think of a VPN as a secure tunnel that redirects and encrypts all the data that comes in and out of your computer, helping to keep you safe against anyone who's trying to hack or spy on you. If you want to sign up right now, you can do that at the link in the description, and you'll get up to 70% off your subscription. Just go to that link and use the coupon code ThePunkRockNBA. But let's get specific for a minute. Why would you want a VPN? Well, for one, if you work off public Wi-Fi a lot, like I do at Starbucks, hotels, airports, stuff like that, and you want to keep all your data safe. Or maybe you're one of the many people that just doesn't like getting tracked by Google, Facebook, and other advertisers. And best of all, NordVPN lets you connect up to 6 devices with 1 subscription. So your laptop, your desktop gaming PC, your phone, your iPad, maybe a console, all that is going to be covered for one price. If you want to sign up, just hit the link in the description and use coupon code ThePunkRockNBA. And with that out of the way, let's get into it.
These juggalos, these wannabe little gangster yo-boy wiggers.
Whoop whoop, show me your butthole. MCL, my ninja. If you already know who Insane Clown Posse are, then everything I just said will be very familiar to you. And if you don't know who they are, or maybe you're not super familiar with them, let me explain. Now, I'm no ICP scholar, but I have been kind of morbidly fascinated with them since I moved to Cleveland back in 1996 and discovered the wild world of like upper Midwest white guy rap, including a young version of Kid Rock, who back then I remember called himself the motherfucking pimp of the Midwest. But ICP were easily the most ridiculous and attention-worthy of all of them. I mean, schlubby dudes from Detroit wearing evil clown makeup and FUBU jerseys? How could you not pay attention to that? And then I found out about their very unique fandom. As you probably know, they call themselves Juggalos. Literally millions of these people all over the world, but especially in the Midwest of America. There's this whole little world of people who base their entire identity really around being an ICP fan. They dress like the band, they draw their whole friend circle from other ICP fans, they talk in Juggalo slang all the time. I mean, really, for a lot of these people, being a Juggalo is their life. These are grown adults in their 20s, 30s, even their 40s now, whose favorite thing, like their whole lifestyle, is dressing up like a clown and spraying each other with Faygo.
All you have to say is whoop whoop.
Show me yours!
Or show your butthole.
And if you're thinking, wow, that's kind of sad and pathetic, like these people sound like a bunch of complete losers, then you are not alone, because for the longest time, that's what pretty much everybody said about them. Everybody associated with the ICP or the Juggalo scene was one notch up from being just a complete subhuman. The hate was really that strong.
All juggalos are stupid, they fail at life, they might as well just kill themselves now.
For example, you might remember about 10 years ago when the video for their song Miracles came out. That's the fucking magnets, how do they work one.
Water, fire, air, and dirt. Fucking magnets, how do they work?
And all the snarky hipster blogs were tripping over themselves to write some article like, what a bunch of dumb white trash idiots, don't they even science? And to be totally honest, I kind of fell into that too. I wouldn't say that I was ever that judgmental or hateful or anything like that, but if I'm being honest, I did kind of look down on them. But then something happened that made me think about it a little bit differently. I went to go see the Juggalo band Twisted. I went to interview Daddy X from Cottonmouth Kings, who were headlining. As much as I kind of make fun of the Cottonmouth Kings bro lifestyle, I actually sincerely respect what they've done from like a DIY perspective. And I was being kind of a smug asshole about it and joking around with my friends like, oh, I can't believe I'm actually gonna be in the same room with Juggalos. And honestly, I walked out of the venue that night feeling like a total asshole. because what happened was that even though I was clearly an outsider, I stood out like a sore thumb. I actually had a great time because everybody there was so genuinely nice and just disarmingly friendly to me and welcoming that I realized I had it all wrong, and so did everybody else.
ICP and Juggalos suck. They're all stupid.
And what I kind of realized is that the way all these snarky hipster blogs shit on ICP and Juggalos in general revealed what I think is one of the grossest things about a particular part of music culture. The just straight up unapologetic classism. The one group of people where it's totally socially acceptable to just absolutely shit on them in the most hateful, cruel way is people like Juggalos. The working class Midwest types who don't like the quote unquote right things, or as a lot of people called them, white trash.
This is sweet tea, you know how we do it? Sweet tea and heroin. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
With that said, I'm happy to see that that really doesn't seem to be the case anymore. In fact, I think that the narrative around ICP has actually evolved in a really cool way. Most of the articles or videos that you would see about ICP now portrays the Juggalo scene as really what I think it is. It's a place for all these misfits and outcasts who legitimately don't fit in anywhere else and don't get any respect from anybody, anywhere really, to finally have a place where they belong and fit in and don't feel like a piece of shit.
I know my constitutional rights. I can be a juggalo if I want to. This is fucking America.
And also, people are starting to give ICP credit for being one of the most successful DIY artists of all time, as they should. I think a really big milestone here was that ICP was recently on No Jumper and DJ Vlad. For ICP to be on two of the most influential platforms in hip-hop, I think says a lot about how the thinking has changed around them.
I just want to get that across firsthand, that I'm hugely appreciative and I have a huge amount of respect for everything that you guys have accomplished.
Now, with all of that being said, do I want to go to the Gathering of the Juggalos? Fuck no. The last thing I want to do is live in a muddy field for 3 days with a bunch of people running around naked and spraying soda on each other and God knows what the fuck else happens there. And do I want to listen to ICP's music? Again, fuck no, I don't. I think they are absolutely awful, but I'm genuinely happy that other people enjoy it, and I'm also happy to see that we aren't being such dicks to their fans anymore.
Are you dumb, stupid, or dumb?
Okay. And next up, 6ix9ine. If you are one of the people who kind of turns up your nose every time I praise rap on this channel, then you might like this segment because this is going to be one of the rare times where I take the side of rock over rap. If you are not familiar with 6ix9ine, or as he is also known, Tekashi 6ix9ine, he is a 24-year-old rapper from New York that's pretty much universally hated. And to be clear, he is hated for very good reasons. I am not here to defend him at all. And yet he's also incredibly popular. For example, his comeback song Gooba, which was the first one he put out after being in prison for a while.
You're mad, I'm back. Big mad, he's mad, she's mad.
Has 360 million views in a month, and it also has the record for being the most viewed video of all time on YouTube within a 24-hour window. It got like 40 or 50 million views in a day. So how is it that he is so popular yet also so hated? Well, that depends who you ask, and also gets back to my original point about the differences between the rock and rap scenes. In the rap scene, he's hated for being a shit talker, but more than anything else for being a snitch, a rat. He built his fame by looking like an actual clown or a troll doll and being pretty much the most obnoxious, abrasive, irritating person of all time on social media.
I don't fuck with no old hoes, only new hoes. Put my dick in the back when I pass it to my bro.
Like, if you think Franz from Attila is bad, multiply him by like 500 million thousand and you've got 6ix9ine.
And I know a lot of y'all niggas is tight that I'm a fucking free man. You're mad. You're mad. Stupid.
Talking shit on every rapper you can imagine, bragging about his gang affiliations, and just being like an absolute raging dick to anybody and everybody, and giving zero fucks about who he pissed off along the way. I mean, if you come at Casanova, of all people...
I don't crack under pressure, fuck the bullshit. When I slide homicide, then a news clip.
A guy who started his rap career after spending 8 years in prison? You are crazy, stupid, or most likely both. Kind of like when Mr. Trapped came after Ezek. 6ix9ine took social media shit talking to a whole new level, farther than anybody ever has. To the point where people like legitimately thought that he might get killed.
Fuck you and your dead homies, nigga. Fuck are you talking about? I'm gangster like that. I'm gangster like that, nigga.
And everybody was watching because we can't take our eyes off a train wreck, right? More and more people hated him with every beef he got himself into, but at the same time, more and more people were listening to his music, so he kept going and going and going until finally the feds dropped the hammer and charged him and several other members of his gang with conspiracy to commit murder and some gun charges, some drug shit, a bunch of stuff where he was facing a minimum of something like 47 years in prison.
A rat like me to come home and still do more numbers than you, I will be mad too. You have every reason to be mad.
Which led to the thing that most people seem to hate him for. He testified on behalf of the feds against members of his former gang in order to get a reduced sentence. Personally, I don't give a fuck. I mean, why would I care that he sold out a couple career criminals? But this made the rap world go absolutely ballistic, with tons and tons of like snarky social media posts and diss tracks that cemented his status as easily the most hated person in hip-hop of all time. Everybody from Trippie Redd to Snoop Dogg to 2 Chainz was calling him out.
I read the paperwork you told on your homies. I felt it when we met, gave me vibes of a phony.
Now on the rock scene, it's a different story. There, he is hated for being convicted of sex crimes. He pled guilty to some charges involving sexual exploitation of a minor. I'm not going to go into detail about exactly what happened because I know it can be hard for some trauma survivors to hear that kind of thing. If you want the details, you can look it up. But the important point is that these aren't rumors or allegations or he said, she said. The guy pled guilty, and rock fans rightfully think he's a piece of shit for that. But on the other hand, in hip-hop culture, they seem to just kind of not think it's that big of a deal. I think this sums it up very well from a guy who worked on the video for Gooba. Asked if he felt professional unease specifically about 6ix9ine's child sex crime charge, Comer eventually says, that's a great question. I don't think I want to go on the record with that one right now. Anyone who brings that up to me, it's totally a valid concern and it's a point, but at the end of the day, the numbers don't lie. In other words, yeah, I think it's gross, but I knew this video would get a lot of views, so I took the job anyway. And on the one hand, it kind of blows my mind that people in hip-hop seem to pretty much just not care that much. But then again, Tupac is everyone's favorite rapper, and he is also a convicted sex offender, and nobody seems to care about that.
Thanks to Romantic Depot, I now know how to treat women with dignity and respect.
So anyway, the takeaway to me here is that rap may have a lot of great ideas about music and marketing, but I do think the values in hip-hop can be pretty fucked up, especially when it comes to treatment of women. And the way people feel about 6ix9ine is a pretty good example of that.
That's not metal. Look at those gay haircuts.
They're not a metal band. They're just a bunch of hipster pretty boys.
No, I'm not talking about Bringing the Horizon or Asking Alexandria. I'm talking about another one of metal's favorite punching bags, Def Heaven. Or maybe more accurately, a former punching bag, because that seems to be less true now. But if you go back to 2014 or 15, you can't throw a rock without hitting some true cult black metal fan making a shitty comment about how they're hipster black metal and they have no place in the scene, which to be fair is kind of true. I mean, they 100% are hipster black metal. I mean, look at them. They look like the kind of guys that would have some very elaborate 25-minute long artisanal coffee brewing process every morning as they listen to the New York Times podcast, and a lot of their fans do too. So the hipster black metal thing is not wrong as far as their image, and I would say with their music, it holds true too.
Norwegian forest cats. Have you seen those things?
They were the band that for most people put black gaze on the map, which, as you might guess from the name, combines black metal with shoegaze, like My Bloody Valentine and all those other bands for dudes that are super into hollow body guitars and delay pedals. And specifically their 2013 album Sunbather, which was a huge hit as far as like indie underground metal goes. It was voted best metal album of 2013 by Pitchfork, Spin, and Rolling Stone. It was the highest reviewed album of the year on Metacritic. I think the average score is like a 92, which is crazy. Everybody from Pitchfork to Vice to Rolling Stone, every quote-unquote music critic fawned over them and wrote these long, pretentious, gushy pieces about how brilliant they were. And as the big sparkling jewel at the top of their hipster crown, Apple actually used Sunbather in one of their marketing keynote presentations. So critics and people who normally didn't listen to black metal adored them, but the true black metalers, oh no, it was a very, very different story with them. As a few pretty typical examples, this Facebook comment full of big boomer energy. This angry video calling them all kinds of names. Or this long butthurt blog post about them and liturgy, the other poster children for hipster black metal. As I'm editing this now, I kind of realize it makes it sound like I hate this band and like I'm trying to shit all over them. I'm not at all. Like, musically, it's not necessarily my thing, but I actually legitimately respect what they're doing. I think it's very innovative and cool, and they seem like cool guys who can take a joke. So that's all, no offense intended. As is usually the case with these bands, I don't think their music alone can explain the hatred, because they were far from the first band to do black gaze or post-black metal or whatever you want to call it. There are plenty of other bands from hipster meccas like Portland and Olympia, and I apologize on behalf of the Northwest for bringing this into the world. Agalock and Wolves in the Throne Room being two examples, and as I recall, those bands were pretty well liked. So why did Deaf Heaven in particular spark so much hatred? Well, I think that Butthurt blog post got it right, or, well, almost right. Hipsters are what happens when a social scene invades a musical movement. Instead of people working towards the music, people are using the music to justify their lifestyles, show off their outsider status, which is a raised status, or give themselves a unique purpose in life that others do not have. When people call Deaf Heaven a hipster band, they're acknowledging the obvious. Musically, Deaf Heaven has more in common with emo and indie rock than it ever will in metal, and we want the traitors out. And like I said, I think this is half right. What they got wrong is that it's not because their music has more in common with emo or indie rock, because it obviously doesn't. This sounds nothing like Fleet Foxes or whatever. But they were kind of directionally correct. It's because the guys in the band, and most of their fans, have more in common with the indie and punk ethos and culture than they do with the black metal scene. In other words, I think musically they fit in, which is why people didn't hate the other black gaze bands, but culturally they don't. And I actually think the cultural part is more important in most cases than the musical part is, as far as whether people will accept your band or not. Suicide Silence is another example of this. Their early stuff especially was just brutal as fuck. It very clearly had more in common with like brutal death metal and grind and slam than anything else musically. But the band's cultural roots were in the Inland Empire, metalcore, and deathcore scene, and so real metalers hated them. Or as sort of the opposite scenario, Newfound Glory is an MTV TRL pop punk band, but because of their roots in the hardcore scene, particularly Chad, they're accepted in hardcore, whereas a band that sounds the same, like Good Charlotte or Simple Plan, is not. So the takeaway here is that when you're thinking about where your band fits, or really this applies to marketing any product of any kind, remember that when it comes to marketing, it's usually more about the culture than it is the product itself. Go to where you are a cultural fit, and that is where you will find the most success.
Pretty sharp dresser here. You really came ready to party.
I do what I can.
All right, my friends, that does it for this edition of Most Hated Bands. Let me know what you think in the comments, and also let me know what other bands you think should be next in this series. Bands or individual artists, doesn't matter, doesn't have to be a rock band. Could be a rapper or pop artist, whatever. Let me know what you think in the comments. Also, if you don't yet follow me on Instagram, I would appreciate it very much if you do. There's a link to that in the comments. Number 2, if you want to talk about business with me, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. There's also a link to that in the comments. And lastly, as always, I would like to sincerely thank everyone who supports us on Patreon, especially those who support at the True Cult level or above. Patrons get a bunch of perks. For example, they get every podcast a week early. There's a members-only private Discord server that I'm always in. There's also an opportunity to have me review your band, your YouTube channel, your podcast, your design or photography portfolio, any other project that you would like to send my way and get my feedback on. So if that sounds interesting to you, check it out at the link in the description. And with that, I'm going to sign off for now, but I will see you next time.
That's 5.
Can somebody please bring back the good old-fashioned classic breakdown with the band playing a sloppy, generic chug riff and the singer yelling some sort of cool hardcore line before it? Is that so much to ask of the world? What's up, everybody? I'm Finn McKenty. This is the Punk Rock MBA, and today we are going to talk about my personal favorite art form, the breakdown. Some people are into painting or sculpture, maybe interpretive dance, but me, I am into this. So if you are like me and you miss top 10 breakdown videos, poorly executed guitar flips, and the absolutely reckless, irresponsible use of bass drops in every single measure, then stay tuned because this video is for you. But before we get into that, number one, if you have not yet followed me on Instagram, I would appreciate it very much if you would. There's a link to that in the description. Number two, if you want to support the show on Patreon, patrons get access to a bunch of stuff like every podcast a week early. There's an opportunity for me to review your band or any other creative project that you might have. Also link to that in the description. And number three, I did make a Spotify playlist for this video. So if you want to check that out, that is also in the description. And with all that out of the way, let's get into the video. First, let's get clear on what exactly is a breakdown. When I say that word now, I think most people probably think of a bunch of guys in skinny jeans doing some sort of synchronized dance moves to a syncopated chug riff. But what it actually means is in the context of song arrangement. It refers to a part of the song where you break the song down into its essential elements as a way of creating dynamics in the song. For example, here where they break the song just down to the drums and bass. Get it! Get it! If you've ever heard the term breakbeats, that's where it comes from. Like when people sampled these breaks, looped them, and then rapped over them, that was the beginning of hip hop. So that's the origin of the term, and to some extent that's just semantics, but it actually is a relevant point, which I'll return to later in the video, so keep that filed away. Which brings us to part one, the early years of the breakdown, basically the 80s. Before there were syncopated chug riffs that were created specifically to make kids spin kick each other in the face, we had the mosh part. Not quite as cool as a breakdown, but we were working with limited resources. I mean, back then our guitars only had 6 strings. What are you supposed to do with that? You can debate all day long who did it first. I'm not really interested in that, but I would say that as far as who popularized it, Bad Brains were one of the first. And then all the 80s New York hardcore bands that essentially picked up where Bad Brains left off took that to the next level. And in parallel to what hardcore bands were doing, thrash metal bands were doing their own version of that same idea. The first big milestone here is Raining Blood by Slayer in 1986. I remember the first time I heard this and my 14-year-old brain just exploded, and I immediately went and played a really, really bad version of it on my Fender Squier and Crate combo amp. And the second big milestone here would be Domination by Pantera, which came out in 1990 on Cowboys from Hell. Hell yeah, brother, fucking Pantera! You put all of that together, the stuff the hardcore bands are doing, the stuff the thrash metal bands are doing, you have all the raw ingredients and the recipe for the next stage of breakdowns. Which brings us to part two, the 90s. And again, the hardcore and metal scenes are kind of both working on this in parallel, but increasingly overlapping more. First of all, the metallic hardcore bands. And I know you guys make fun of me for how much I talk about Earth Crisis, but I'm telling you, you guys do not understand how important and influential they were. Like, they really did change everything overnight with the Firestorm EP. Like, they were the Nirvana of hardcore. After everybody heard this riff, it was over. This is the exact moment when hardcore started to sound like metal, and when the breakdown started to become like the most important part of the song. Along with Earth Crisis, you had bands like Poison the Well, VOD, and of course Hatebreed. And an interesting thing to me is how the breakdown kind of turned heavy music into a kind of dance music in a way. Like when Hatebreed played this part. Yeah. You knew everybody was gonna go the fuck off and kill each other on the dance floor. And on the metal side of things, there was the rising groove metal scene, which I think did a lot for breakdowns by finally combining the groove of hardcore with the tightness of metal. First of all, Sepultura. I personally prefer their thrash stuff like Arise, but I remember every fucking hardcore band on the planet was like biting Chaos AD when it came out, and then a couple years later, Roots. And Machine Head, who were not really popular in the hardcore scene back then, but made huge waves in metal. I remember right after Burn My Eyes came out, like if you read Metal Maniacs in 1996 or 97, it was like page after page after page of Machine Head clones mixed in with like Cradle of Filth clones. Which brings us to part 3, the early to mid 2000s, the beginning of the modern breakdown. The first big thing in this era, I would say, is the new wave of American heavy metal bands. Killswitch, God Forbid, Chimera, Lamb of God. The common thread there being that these were bands that came, at least in large part, from the hardcore scene, but could play as well as metal bands. Which was very refreshing because, let's be honest, most hardcore bands can barely play their instruments. Couple good examples here from God Forbid and Chimera. I wouldn't say that they were innovative per se in the sense that they weren't really introducing any new ideas to the breakdown, but I do think that they played an important role of really raising the bar in terms of tightness of playing and production. But here's where things start getting really good, in my opinion, the early MySpace metalcore bands. And by good, I actually mean really bad, but bad in a kind of endearing way that makes it good again. This era is where the idea of core kids really started to become a thing. Kids that didn't come from the metal scene or the hardcore scene, they were just kind of their own little thing that sprouted up out of nowhere in random places like Dayton and Toledo. And this whole scene pretty much revolved all around the breakdown, which they took to some absolutely ridiculous and awesome new places.
Actually, you've heard it everywhere on MySpace. Everybody's trying to cash in on this thing called the breakdown.
If you listen to the early MySpace core breakdowns now, it's pretty interesting because it's so different from modern breakdowns. These are all about like really fast chug riffs. Almost like a thrash metal kind of thing, although I'm pretty sure that very few of these bands were actually influenced by thrash in a meaningful way. Like, I can't imagine too many of these kids were listening to Exodus and Creator and Nuclear Assault. And of course, everything was super edited and sample replaced, so there's a 0% chance that they would sound like this live. But who cares? The kids loved it, and it was clear that the breakdown was the cool new thing. And there was this massive surge of breakdown-related innovation, kind of like the metalcore Cambrian explosion. Now let's talk about some of the key developments in the breakdown during this era. In no particular order, number 1, the skronky panic chord thing. Which I think we can very clearly attribute to Norma Jean. Although, as they will tell you, they got that whole thing from hardcore bands like Coalesce and Botch and Dead Guy. And of course, the thing where the whole song stops, the drummer hits his Zill bell, ding, and then they unleash the breakdown. And also, we have to mention guitar flips. I guess these aren't technically strictly related to breakdowns, but they do go hand in hand.
I see a lot of emo too.
Thoughts and prayers to every metalcore kid out there who lost an eye to a poorly flipped Jackson or ESP. And on the real hardcore side of things, all the Orange County Trustkill core bands were doing big things for the art of breakdowns. I mean, it wouldn't be a punk rock NBA video if I didn't also mention 18 Visions, and of course, the legendary Tower of Snakes breakdown. Along with Throwdown, and some more obscure bands like Wrench. This was also the era of all the so bad they're actually fucking awesome straight edge or straight edge adjacent bands like AFB, Tyrant, Fight Everyone, and of course the legendary Life Ruiner.
Fuck you! Fuck this! Fuck your motherfucking life!
But my personal very favorite thing about the mid to late 2000s breakdown scene, which I've talked about before, and I will continue to talk about because that's how much I love it, are all the top breakdowns compilations that you'd find on YouTube. Of course, all in 240p, made in Windows Movie Maker, with those like built-in Arial font title cards, and some ridiculous name like Top 10 Insane Deathcore Breakdowns That Will Destroy Your Soul. I discovered so many bands from these, a lot of which I actually still listen to. These are truly a forgotten art form that seems so like quaint and charming now. Like when I look back at one of those pictures from the 20s or whatever of kids playing that game with like a stick and a hoop. And it was around the late 2000s, I think, that the art form of breakdown started to get really good. The bands were pushing them to new levels, the kids loved it, and of course, the more the kids love it, the more the metal nerds hated it. breakdowns became public enemy #1 for internet metal nerds. If you wanted to show everybody that you were a real metaler in 2008, what better way to do that than with one of those old school demotivator style memes where the punchline essentially boiled down to, breakdowns are so gay. Which brings us to part 4, the late 2000s into the 2010s. In my personal opinion, this was the pinnacle of breakdowns as an art form. This is where they got very, very advanced thanks to years of effort on behalf of both the hardcore and metal scenes. Again, it's a little bit hard to nail down the exact timeline of all this stuff, but some of the key developments in the art and science of breakdowns during this period would be, #1, hands down, the biggest thing during this period was the creation of crabcore, which was obviously a joke genre that people came up with based on the Attack Attack Stick Stickly video, because they danced like crabs or whatever. But it stuck because it really did describe a whole genre of bands. All those like Rise Records bands that were produced by Joey Sturgis, that were all kind of variations on that same sound. The signature things here, I think, were first of all the choppier rhythm of the breakdowns. As compared to the faster, like thrash metal style ones of the previous generation. And also that super crisp Joey production that made metalcore bands sound way, way better than they ever had before, and made the breakdowns hit that much harder. And stay tuned for a whole video about Joey, that is in the works too. Another big thing here was adding synth parts to the breakdowns. You can debate about who did it first, it doesn't really matter, because Attack Attack took that to a whole new level with that bizarre, like, trance kind of part that comes out of nowhere in Stick Stickly. And made everyone go, what the fuck is this? And then, of course, tons and tons of other bands did it, like Icy Stars and Abandon All Ships, as well as like 9 million other random generic crabcore bands that nobody's ever heard of, except the weirdos that comment on my videos and know every single one of them. And of course, another one of my very favorite things, all the mini variations of the pre-breakdown mosh call. You know, the part where the singer says some cool hardcore phrase right before the chugs start. Bonus points if you can also use that line on the back of a shirt in impact font. The most notorious of these, of course, is By a Day to Remember.
Disrespect your surroundings.
But that's not all. They had another legendary mosh call.
This is a battleground.
Or more recently, Knocked Loose's Arf Arf. I'm also a big fan of any mosh call about penises. For example,
I should go with my dick tastes right.
Or
suck my dick.
I love it when bands include the year in the mosh call, because it sounds super cool when the song comes out, but then really dated within 12 months at most. And of course, the blah thing, as popularized by Architects. And Run Into the Ground, to the point where poor Sam from Architects seems intensely annoyed by the fans
The blah causes stupid noise.
beating this dead horse constantly, which will of course only make their weirdo fans punish him more about it. Sam, if you're watching this, I apologize on their behalf. They're doing the best they can with their clearly very, very limited emotional maturity and life skills. Please forgive them. And another trend that I love, one that very badly needs to come back, is the bass drop breakdown. Especially when it's turned up so loud in the mix that it makes the master bus clip for like 2 seconds straight. I genuinely love like how little they gave a fuck about like the standards of what good production is supposed to mean, according to the textbook. Like, you know, somebody heard this played back in the studio from whoever mixed it. They heard all that clipping, but they were still like, fuck yeah, man, that sounds great. Bounce it, put it on a CDR for me, and I'll upload it to pure volume as soon as I get home to my HP desktop PC, running Windows Vista. Easycore was another very interesting trend around this time, which is basically pop punk with metalcore breakdowns. The innovation here being that the breakdowns, instead of being like pissed off, are in a more like upbeat kind of scale, sometimes with Moog synths over them. If you want a deep dive on Easycore, I actually did a whole video about that you can check out. There's also the thing where they would play a movie sample before the breakdown.
It's coming, dude. It's coming, dude. It's coming.
Which for a while was super popular and everyone was doing it, and then suddenly in 2010 that trend like went extinct and nobody did it anymore? Like, is there some sort of central governing body that issues a decree that movie samples are now banned? And lastly, all the bands that made pretty much like every song into just a collection.
I know why. Because of the copyright thingy. The copyright, the DMCA thing got. Yeah, the DMCA got really nasty in the 2010s and just couldn't do that anymore.
Collection of super down-tuned breakdowns. I guess people call that down-tempo now. You would have to give the Acacia Strain credit for starting this back in the day. But my personal favorite band in this style was the legendary Demolisher, whose EP is sadly not on Spotify.
We are here to fucking say.
And that brings us to the final section. Part 5, the late 2010s or so to present day. There's no question that the pace of innovation in the breakdown scene has slowed, but that makes sense because we've been working on them for like 15 years. Moore's law for breakdowns is over. But there have been some innovations, the first of which I would say is core kids discovering slam and adding that to metalcore and deathcore. I would say No Zodiac were probably the first band to kind of popularize that in the hardcore scene. And I would credit Ingested with doing that on the deathcore side of things. And if you've watched my slam video, you know that I popularized that in the hardcore scene, deathcore. I would say No Zodiac were probably the first band to kind of popularize that in the hardcore scene, which I would say is core slowed, but that makes sense or so to present day. There's no question that the pace of innovation in the breakdown scene has slowed, but that makes sense because we've been working on them for like 15 years. Moore's law for breakdowns is over. But there have been some innovations, the first of which I would say is core kids discovering slam and adding that to metalcore and deathcore. I would say No Zodiac were probably the first band to kind of popularize that in the hardcore scene.
Humanity has got so sad. Population control.
And I would credit Ingested with doing that on the deathcore side of things. And if you've watched my slam video, you know that I personally do not like slamcore. I would suggest checking out some real slam, my personal favorites being Cephalotropsy and Cerebral Incubation. And yes, I know what you're thinking, but if gatekeeping slam was a crime, put the cuffs on me and take me away. Guilty as charged. And the other big development, of course, is the invasion of gent. Meshuggah has been around since like the late 80s, early 90s, but for whatever reason, core kids didn't discover them until 2008 when Obscene came out, and they heard Bleed. And it took them another couple years to catch up and be able to play that kind of stuff. But these days, I'm sad to say that the classic crabcore breakdown is pretty much gone, and it's been replaced with the generic gentcore breakdown. For example... Yeah, those sound kind of cool, I guess, but are they really breakdowns anymore in like the original sense of the word? To me, playing a super complicated, like syncopated chug part is kind of the opposite of a breakdown. It's adding complexity. It's almost like the new solo.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people love those parts, so more power to them. But to me, I kind of miss the dynamics that came with the classic breakdowns. And of course, the complexity means that now real metal people like them, because to those people, more notes equals better. So the stigma of breakdowns is gone, but if you ask me, breakdowns also kind of got ruined in the process. But look, if that's what the kids are into these days, then who am I to stand in the way? All I'm asking is, can somebody please bring back the good old-fashioned classic breakdown with the band playing a sloppy, generic chug?
Try to make every instrument play its own solo and then at the same time. And then start and end at the same time. I don't know. I'll try doing that one day.
Riff and the singer yelling some sort of cool hardcore line before it. Is that so much to ask of the world? Alright my friends, that does it for this video about the evolution of breakdowns. As always, I would love to hear what you think in the comments. There's a lot of stuff I couldn't include in the video. I might do a part 2 if you guys are interested. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Also, if you haven't yet, I would really appreciate it if you follow me on Instagram. And don't forget to check out the playlist, also link to that in the description. And as always, I would like to thank everyone who supports the show on Patreon, especially those who support us at the true cult level or above. It is because of your support that we're able to do a lot of things like the podcast. If you are interested in supporting on Patreon, there's a link to that in the description too. Patrons get every podcast a week early. There's a private Discord server. There's also a chance for me to review your band, your YouTube channel, any other kind of creative project that you want to send my way. So if that sounds cool, check out the link in the description. And I will sign off for now, but I will see you next time.
No one plays Pollock anymore.
People. I said
Then
it.
he's been the vocalist of Falling in Reverse. A lot of people have asked for a video about...
Let's watch this.
What's up everybody, I'm Finn McKenty, this is the Punk Rock NBA, and today I'm here to talk about a guy that a certain part of the scene just loves to hate, and that guy is Ronnie Radke. For those of you who aren't familiar, he was the original vocalist for Escape the Fate, then he took a couple years off of doing music because he went to prison, which I will talk about later, and since then he has been the vocalist of Falling in Reverse. A lot of people have asked
Wendy,
for a video
thank you
about
so
Ronnie, and I hadn't done it until now because I just kind of wasn't sure what I wanted to say. And I think what it comes down to is this. If everything that I just said is true, which is that he's been relevant for almost 15 years now, which is an eternity in scene years, and
oh my god. Herald of Thunder. I don't know that one. From crits. Oh, so it's like a loop. What is that?
There will come a time on the planet Earth when science and technology will be long forgotten, will rule the world. It is the story of two brothers, Avatar and Black Wolf, powerful wizards, and mortal enemies from the day they were born. Avatar, the good, who rules the peaceful kingdom of Montagar with wisdom.
Science and technology were outlawed millions of years ago.
And magic. Black Wolf, the future Führer.
Attention! Behold!
Who rediscovers the ancient secrets of propaganda. Technology.
a documentary about it? No way.
911, what is your emergency?
Ask them to help us get a National Guard unit, maybe with a helicopter to... Let's get all the Granby Town Hall.
You need a National Guard unit and a helicopter. 911, what is...
$5.
Hey buddy, did you hear the news? It's track reviews.
Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. Hope you're doing well. And it is time for a review, specifically a track review of one new song, a collaboration between Scott, Marshall, Eminem, Cudi, the Fast Rapper, the two crazy worlds crossing over. For what reason, I don't know. A lot of people just in concept are confounded by the prospect of this crossover, but you know, even though Cudi and Eminem do have very different respective styles, they both do have a catalog that deals quite a bit in angsty, negative feelings, moody feelings, mental health occasionally as well. So maybe there's more in common between these two than some are willing to acknowledge. So given that, I am pretty excited to listen to this new song from both of them, The Adventures of Moonman and Slim Shady. There is a huge promotional rollout for this one single song. It was announced a little bit in advance on Kid Cudi's website. There is a massive amount of merch being dropped just in relation to this song, where it's just literally this single cover art on hoodies, on shirts. There's 7-inch singles, there's 12-inch picture discs, there's tapes. Like, any way you want this single, you can have it. And it makes me wonder if these two have more coming down the pipe, if they're going to do this much for one single track. But I guess you really never know. So again, pretty psyched to try out this track and see how exactly these two work together, try to complement each other. I guess we will see. I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor in this video, the good people over at The Ridge. They make these nifty, amazing, slick, sleek, metal plated minimalist wallets that fit nicely in your front pocket. Replace your disgusting, filthy leather wallet today that is sitting there taking up way too much room in your pocket right now. Using the link down below with promo code MELON, 10% off. Okay, Kid Cudi, Eminem, Adventures of Moonman and Slim Shady. Let's go ba-bam. Okay, I mean, that was okay. I don't really mind it. I guess it surpassed my expectations. You know, I seriously thought this was going to be like a total fucking mess. I really, really did. It was not. It was a pretty vibey, coherent, enjoyable track that was very, very much lower on the cringe than I thought it would be. It surpassed expectations. So the question is, why did it do that? Well, one, the production is pretty good. It's a mystical, moody, textured beat with a lot of trippy touches, some new agey touches as well. There are some elements to the production too, like the hey, hey, and the way the beat is kind of grooving to me that felt a little Kanye-ish. As far as the Cudi section of the track, which is really the whole first leg of the song, the flows and again the textures and the beat are sounding good. Are his bars blowing me away? Is the writing his best writing? Is the vocal performance his best vocal performance? Not necessarily. You know, we're not even really getting too many hums on this one. But the bars for Cudi run pretty personal, and I don't mind the writing. I don't mind it. It's just not really like, you know, putting me in an exciting or, again, a mind-blowing place. It's more kind of the vibe of the flows and the instrumental that are really the selling point. Then when Eminem comes in, I feel like a dynamic of the song is instantly lost, because if you notice the way Cudi's vocals are treated, there are, again, a lot of reverby and trippy touches on his voice at certain points just to add a different sound or a feel to the track, because it makes it sound a little otherworldly and a little left field and just a little strange and ominous, like you're floating in space with him as he's rapping with you these mental bars. Then when Eminem comes in, his voice is super freaking dry. So, of course, it sort of takes you out of that vibe entirely, which I don't know why he would have insisted on that, especially since his flow on this track for him is relatively easygoing. For his voice to be treated at least a little bit with something, I think would have added to the sound of the song and would have made him sound like he's a bit more a part of the track. Now, again, Eminem's flows and delivery for him at this point in his career is relatively measured. He's not going super duper overboard. It's not it's nothing like that. You know, he's really in a toned down vocal delivery on this one, and while he does throw in, you know, some internal rhymes and lines, and he is speeding up his flow and some of the rhythms here and there, sort of adding extra little rhythmic embellishments in certain lines, he is following kind of like the blueprint of Cudi's flow on the song a good deal of the time. It does feel like both of them are artistically connected in that sense. Eminem isn't just popping in here and just doing anything that he feels like. Then it's kind of the matter of Eminem's bars, which can be hit or miss. We know what Eminem's writing is like at this point, so of course, you're going to see lines like, I'm not high, but I'm your highness, or another line where, you know, so I'm like a drug, so your opinion of me is high as fuck. Also, the weird, it sounded like an ad-lib that he was doing or something where he needed to throw out the specificity of the fluoride wash to put context of the swish line as if it wasn't already painfully obvious. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just go back and listen to it. There were some bars that I thought were kind of clever or maybe a little funny, like the Corona nod line where he was going on about landing in a casket because you're coughing, and the other bar in reference to Medusa and staying ahead of snakes, I thought was incredibly clever, honestly. But then, of course, like, there were some others that felt really odd to me, like the one about him needing to feel human by going to the bathroom and vacuuming. Look, the bars are spotty in my view, in terms of, like, are they kind of cringy? Are they kind of clever? Are they entertaining? But I will commend Eminem once again for not just, like, you know, pulling off an overkill here on this track and, you know, just trying to fit the tone of the song overall. Then Scott cleans up shop with a few lines at the very end where he's going on about like a trilogy or something. Like, the way that I read it, it felt like there may be more to come from these two, which, again, considering how, like, ambitious the rollout is and the merch line is for this track, it does make me wonder if there's going to be more coming down the pipe for all of this. And maybe it's in the cards, maybe it's based on whether or not the reception of this song is positive. I don't know. I suppose we will just have to see. Overall, I guess I will say that I thought this track was not bad. The only thing that I think really would have improved it is if there was maybe some kind of concept or topic or through line between what both of them were doing thematically and lyrically, and if just Eminem's and Cudi's bars were just like a few cuts above where they are currently, really. So, yeah, The Adventures of Moonman and Slim Shady, those are my thoughts on the track. Make sure to leave yours down in the comments of this video. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Slim Shady, Kid Cudi, forever.
Our crop is ready. Return to the garden.
get ready to toast.
How do you define the sound of a decade?
Wake up in the morning feeling like P. Diddy.
A period of 10 years can hold hundreds of moments that guide the course of the popular sound, some monumental and influential on impact, and some minuscule, sowing their seeds to be reaped months or years down the road. The 2010s are no exception. In fact, the past decade might be the most difficult to narrow down. Thanks to the near complete adoption of streaming by industry and listener alike, not to mention the immense influence of the internet, the possibilities for genre cross-pollination have been endless. Is it even possible to define the sound of the 2010s? I think so. Or at least I'm gonna try. I want to narrow down the releases that were most representative of the way music transformed throughout.
$370,000. Jesus.
We don't strive to lose every game. We want to win, but I mean, to me, this is the win. The team is always represented a way to connect to my son.
Echo Fox was supposed to change esports. Built on a father and son's shared love for gaming, it was the org that was supposed to help validate esports to a mainstream audience, with a sports icon in charge.
I'm not here to debate the level at which they fit and slot in between basketball players. They are digital athletes. They're professional digital athletes.
And for a while, Echo Fox was one of the biggest organizations in esports.
Echo Fox will take third place and be the final representative at Rift Rivals.
But then, just as quickly as it all started, Echo Fox imploded, creating the biggest scandal in esports history.
I'm not looking to go anywhere, but I will not stay in a business with a racist. I spent more money, a lot of money, to buy people out of control that were threatening to bankrupt the company. People don't know this story. They were threatening to bankrupt the company in the summer of 2018.
Echo Fox may have started as the organization that was supposed to change esports, but at this point, its legacy is ruined forever. But before all the scandals, Echo Fox was a team that helped champion esports to the mainstream. And it all started as a father and son's passion project.
First time I played League was with Kyle. This was a new game that had grabbed his attention, and I wanted to find out about it.
Rick Fox was introduced to esports by his son Kyle, who became obsessed with League of Legends in college.
We drove over to the offices, man, walked in, and I saw this big picture in the lobby on the wall of the Staples Center, and I was like, oh, they must be basketball fans. And I went and looked, and I didn't see any basketball players, and I said, oh, it must be a concert. I didn't see any concert. And I was like, what the fuck is this shit? Yeah. Like, oh, that's the World Championships of League of Legends. So they sold out Staples. She's like, yeah, like in 9 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Not even 5 or 9 minutes, a quick thing. And I went, oh, shit. I go, can we get a tour?
And when Fox decided to check out the 2015 NALCS Summer Finals at Madison Square Garden, he fell in love with esports too.
Everything about the sounds, the fans, everything about the experience really reignited what I'd known for so many years.
And on his way home, Rick Fox began thinking about getting involved with esports somehow, maybe even owning a team.
I get off the plane, I'm at the baggage claim, and I'm standing there, and my son goes, Dad, that's Reginald. I go, Reginald, who's Reginald?
Reg.
He goes, that's the owner of TSM. Oh, and I go, oh, dude, they just lost. I'm gonna go over and say what's up. So, hey, Reggie, I'm Rick Fox. He goes, I know you are. Yeah. He goes, hey, my son and I were just at Madison Square Garden. It was a tough match, man. I go, but he tells me you guys have won a ton of championships, so maybe you'll be able to rebound from it. And he goes, yeah. He goes, you ever think about being an owner? I went, no, I don't even know what that looks like, man. Like, he goes, you should think about being an owner. Like literally, Reggie at the baggage claim at LAX was the first person that said to me, you should think about getting in.
And in 2016, Rick Fox founded Echo Fox. Now, look, that all seems pretty normal now, but in 2016, this was crazy. Rick Fox was a huge name and the first big name from traditional sports to really get involved in esports in a major way.
This man has high praise, not only for his teammates, but also their owner, Rick Fox, and believes that the team will benefit from his leadership.
It's definitely because Rick Fox is in the picture where he knows what's going on. I mean, it's also that he knows like a team environment and how it like is really good and how it's supposed to be. Because he's been a team captain before and he's like won NBA championships. I mean, he just has so much experience and value he can bring to like the team, and I value that a lot.
Echo Fox started out as a League of Legends team after the org bought Gravity's LCS spot and debuted in the 2016 NALCS Spring Split.
This is now Echo Fox just getting all of them to die. There's the ace, a double kill, 7-0 and 5 for Keith. Deathless in his first game on his new team, and Echo Fox had the day 1-0.
But it didn't take long for Echo Fox to grow into other games.
But Shazam has not seen him as of yet. But he's wrapping back around, and he gets the jump on him. A huge ace from Shazam, and he is fired up.
Yep, just grab it. There you have it. Mewtwo King and Plug are your Genesis 5 Melee Doubles champions.
He jumped onto it.
Oh,
he made it the throw.
That's it. That's it. Tokido is the Evolution 2017 champion.
Rick Fox's profile and desire to put esports on a mainstream stage quickly made the team a fan favorite. By the time LCS franchising rolled around, Echo Fox raised enough money to stick around in the league. And as if he was being rewarded, Echo Fox finished 3rd in the following split, the highest they'd ever seen.
Diving in, looking to take him down onto the fountain, not quite getting the kill, but the turrets are still falling, and there is no way left to stop this. A 3-0 sweep. Echo Fox will take 3rd place and be the final representative at Rift Rivals.
Echo Fox had found its place in esports. The league team was doing well, and the fighting games division was a juggernaut.
Yo, wait, do not tell me we're gonna summon. Are we gonna summon?
Oh!
And Summon Fox is your Dragon Ball Fighters Evolution 2018 champion!
Oh, wow.
Oh, is that it? That is it. Mewtwo King wins. That's it.
But suddenly, out of nowhere, things started to go wrong.
This has been my life. This has been my passion. And I'm not looking to go anywhere, but I will not stay in a business with a racist. I just won't.
In April 2019, Dexerto published a report by Richard Lewis that revealed that Fox was planning to leave Echo Fox after a shareholder allegedly made racist comments and threatened Fox's family. The shareholder in question was Amit Raizada, who had called former Echo Fox CEO Jace Hall a racial slur in an email. Shortly after the report, Riot stepped in. They conducted their own investigation and gave Echo Fox 60 days to remove Raizada before they took action. The 60 days came and went, but Raizada didn't sell his shares. So Riot forced Echo Fox to sell their spot in the league.
So, you know, they were very much, look, you have 60 days, work it out, see if you can get him away from the situation. Well, in the US and in general, racism is not illegal. So someone with an economic interest in a company, you can't take their shares, you can't make them go away, right? They have to sell their shares and or make a proxy or do something to remove themselves from the situation. He wouldn't do that. He wanted to be bought out. And he had an unrealistic value of what the company was worth.
Amit Raizada and Rick Fox went at each other's throats and aired out pretty much all of the org's dirty laundry. Raizada admitted that he had used the language that Fox was accusing him of, but he clarified that he wasn't threatening Fox or Fox's family. He was threatening to sue him because he alleged that Rick Fox had mismanaged Echo Fox to the point where it was harming his own investment.
It was not just my debt. Everyone says it was just Amit. It was Amit and others, and an additional $3 million or $4 million of new money that came in on top of my money, and we're all pro rata in there, and that's how the company's been operating for the last year. If that money wouldn't have come in, and that money wouldn't have been converted, one, it would have been a default in Echo Fox's Echo Fox's riot agreement, and 2, they would have had no money to operate. Who would have paid bills for the last 8 months? There was no money.
But Fox tells the story differently. According to him, it was Rizada who'd mismanaged the company, and Fox was trying to save it.
The president's asking me questions. The employees are asking me questions about what's going on.
Yeah.
I go, hold on, man. Like, we're in a good position, right? And I go start asking questions, and I start digging, and I see we're not as healthy as everyone thinks we are.
Or should be.
Or should be.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I get upset about that.
You should.
Okay? Because now this is my baby that I handed off to you.
Yep.
And this is how you're treating the baby?
Yeah.
Back in 2018, Echo Fox was dealing with financial issues behind the scenes, so they downsized, dropping players from COD, League, and the FGC. Fox says that those were tough decisions he had to make to salvage his beloved team.
People don't know this story. They were threatening to bankrupt the company in the summer of 2018. And I had to put more of my money into the company to get it away from people that were going to drive it off the cliff.
This alleged mismanagement, coupled with Rizada's actions, forced Fox to sue Rizada, along with Echo Fox investor and former San Jose Sharks co-owner Stratton Sklavos, who had actually filed a lawsuit against Fox for mismanagement the week before. But a few weeks after they were filed, both Fox's lawsuit and Sklavos's were privately settled out of court.
And it was in, I think, the best interest of everyone around me that I care about, that they could put it behind them as well. So I settled with them, and we just parted ways and agreed to just let it be what it would be. And the brand and the IP is in good hands. It's not in my hands, and it's not in their hands.
But following the settlements, Echo Fox just kind of went silent. Echo Fox's remaining fighting game and Smash players announced their own departures from the team in February. And there was no fanfare, no big goodbye posts. Echo Fox's social media went dark. They haven't posted since September 2019. Echo Fox was supposed to be a dream made into reality, a dream shared by a father and son who wanted to bring esports into the mainstream. It was championed by a sports icon, someone who seemed above the corruption and petty feuds that esports was so used to seeing. But that dream turned into a nightmare that destroyed one of esports' most promising orgs.
Thanks for watching. If you want more content like this, hit the sub button and ring that notification bell. For unique bite-sized videos you won't find anywhere else, hit up our Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook pages.
So it is known that I have been critical of Kyle Kalinske from time to time. I maybe have spoken a little bit aggressively at some points with regards to that criticism, but generally speaking, I hold I would still defend, I think, many of the things that I've said. This is a video that has been brought to me by about 4,000 people. It is Kyle Kalinske responding to the article that Nathan Robinson made on The Rising, essentially arguing that far-right populism is just fascism, and that what Crystal Ball does essentially is funnel people to the right by legitimizing the far-right perspective of her co-host Sauger and of Tucker Carlson, whose cock is constantly dripping with their shared saliva for his brave decision to occasionally say, corporation bad. Now, Kyle over here has apparently made a video. I have not watched the video. I will now watch the video, and I'm going to make every conceivable effort to be charitable to Kyle Kalinske here. and I will address any criticisms I have. Hopefully you are watching this having already watched my extensive criticisms of Rising with Crystal and Sagar, because I have yelled at both of them quite a bit, and I think that is important context, but if not, I'll try to keep you all on board.
Nathan J. Robinson of Current Affairs magazine wrote a critique of the show Rising with Crystal and Sagar.
True.
Now, before I continue, let me say up front that I actually like Nathan J. Robinson quite a bit. He wrote what I think is maybe the best piece I've ever read on Noam Chomsky. Just hit the perfect note, and I really related to it, so I'd highly recommend checking out Nathan J. Robinson's article on Noam Chomsky in Current Affairs magazine. He also wrote a superb piece on Jordan Peterson. That's another one that I highly recommend you check out. And listen,
He did.
I've promoted Current Affairs before. I think I tweeted out, hey, support their work, and, here's the link. And so that's how much I like Nathan J. Robinson, and I like Current Affairs. But this piece he did on Rising,
here we go.
Let's just say I don't view it like I view the Noam Chomsky one and like I view the Jordan Peterson one.
Here we go.
So here's the title of the Rising piece he wrote. Isn't right-wing populism just fascism? So the gist of his argument is that...
the answer, by the way, is yes. It is. Unless anyone has an argument to me for how right-wing populism is ever manifested in any other way, which I have never seen happen.
Crystal's good. I like Crystal. But Sagar I thought was good. Turns out, no, Sagar's bad. I don't like Sagar. And I think that Sagar's actually terrible now, and Crystal is enabling the terribleness of Sagar. And it seems like an argument. I don't know whether he explicitly says it or doesn't say it. But I think his underlying point is, like, the show shouldn't exist because the left should have... The left should have nothing to do with the populist right. Or, like, the populist left should have nothing to do with the populist right because... quote, isn't right-wing populism just fascism?
So, just to clarify already, the argument isn't that we should have nothing to do with them. The argument is that we should stop pretending we have solutions in common with them. We can still debate them, we can still challenge their ideas, and if there are some very narrow, elements that we can work together on, then maybe we could do that. But the key here is focusing on the difference between solutions and problems. We cannot ally ourselves with far-right populists because we agree on problems. Nazis also believed that international corporations and bankers were ruining the country. That is a position commonly held by leftists as well, but for very different reasons. We can't agree on problems, we must agree on solutions. In this case, the Nazi, well, they did the whole Holocaust thing, which wasn't cool. And we would argue for, the decorporatization, higher regulation, the abolition of private capital, so on and so forth. So, very different solutions there.
And the gist of his argument is this. Oh, let's have a conversation about right-wing populism. Here, let me list some. Bolsonaro of Brazil, Marine Le Pen, Geert Wilders, Donald Trump, Tucker Carlson. And then, of course, he has to throw in there Mussolini and Hitler when talking about right-wing populists.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's fairly apropos.
And so his main claim is that, well, right-wing populism is all a fraud, and you should have nothing to do with them. And Crystal saw the criticism, and she did a segment on it responding. And, her argument was, what do you want me to do?
Remember that right now we're on 1.25 speed. I'm actually going to up it. Hold on. We'll see.
When I'm sitting next to Sagar and Sagar says something I disagree with, I vehemently disagree with him, and we argue it out. And not only is it that sometimes I disagree with him, sometimes I think his beliefs are beyond the pale, and I say it to him that they're beyond the pale. Now, when we happen to agree, we have conversations where we agree. So basically, like, what do you want from me? And it seems like Crystal gets it from left-wingers sometimes, who are like, how dare you sit next to Sagar? And then she gets it from right-wingers when they disagree with the substance of what she says.
No, see, again, it's not how dare you sit next to Sagar. It's you let him rattle off conspiracy theories that rival the JQ for minutes on end, and then you just smile and nod emptily. It's that you enable the idea that he provides solutions to the working class in this country. It's that you both enable Tucker Carlson. It's not that you sit next to him, Crystal, because I could do your job better than you. Get me up there. I'm a real left-wing populist, okay? I'm not some corporate fucking grifter stooge who stole fucking $250,000 from your pack. Get me the fuck up there. I'll talk about it. And I don't talk about problems either. Whenever Sauger starts that bullshit about how, well, the corporate elite are destroying this country, I'm gonna ask him, what do you want to do about it? What's your solution? I'd get I'd be fired the first day. Because I would talk about the solutions to these problems, and not just circle jerk about the existence of problems and the supposed implication that he and I both have equally reasonable solutions to them without actually denoting them. The best suggestion for this, the best way to respond to this, you know who the best candidate for workers' rights in this country over the past century has been? We know his name. Let it fly from your lips. That's right. It is the Burn Dog, who Sauger didn't support because he thinks Bernie went too far into identity politics. So to reiterate, Sauger, who argues that identity politics is a distraction from class politics, used identity politics as a distraction from class politics. Literally, I would have helped you in your goal of supporting the workers, but I didn't because you got too PC. This is not a pro-working class person. This is just a fascist.
That's because she's arguing for left-wing positions. So her point is like, what do you want from me? And listen, I think the implication of what Nathan's saying is pretty clear. He doesn't want the show to exist. He doesn't want the show to exist.
True.
And he doesn't want the left to have anything to do with the populist right, because in his mind, the populist right are frauds, full stop. Now,
well, it's not just that they're frauds, it's that they're fat. I don't care about the authenticity of their beliefs. I care about how damaging those beliefs are. They're frauds in the sense that they don't support the working class, but like, I don't care. They're just bad.
What is populism? In order to have this conversation, we need to define what populism is. Well, populism is a political approach that strives to appeal to ordinary people who feel that their concerns are disregarded by established elite groups. So it's just representing the will of ordinary people. Now, I would contend as well that when you talk about populism, populism is more limited to the scope of economic policy, economic domestic policy. In the same way that, like, when you hear the label neoconservative.
What? No, populism is absolutely can and is oriented around social issues as well. What do you mean? For decades, gay rights in this country has been a populist effort. The will of the people, or I guess of the gay people, was not being represented by the establishment, so they would protest and fight and clash with police, and they worked hard, and now they have a modicum of institutional support. Same is happening with trans people, you know. No, it's not exclusively an economic thing by any means.
It's not the same as like conservative, it's neoconservative, and that typically is more describing politics in the realm of foreign policy. Well, populism is more about domestic economic policy, and it's representing the will of ordinary people on that front. Okay, so
yeah, but ordinary people, like also like gay people and trans people and black people, how this video was made during the BLM marches. Like right now, the BLM marches are happening. How can you possibly argue that populism is exclusively oriented around a domestic economic axis? Populist, anti-racist activism would be the BLM marches, and institutional anti-racist activism would be like passing a bill to revitalize an economic, like, populism is just an approach. It's not, it doesn't have to be domestic or foreign, it doesn't have to be economic or social. It can be any of that.
First of all, that's the definition of it. Now, where would I agree with Nathan? Okay, I would agree that almost every single national leader who calls themselves a right-wing populist or has been broadly given the label a right-wing populist, they're frauds. I think Tucker Carlson is pretty much a fraud. Every now and then he says the right thing about stopping outsourcing jobs, or that one time he agreed with AOC and Bernie about, you know, let's limit the amount of interest that banks can charge. Like, every now and then he'll throw out war is bad or whatever. But yes, the overwhelming majority of the time, he's just taking standard conservative positions. And when he's not taking conservative positions, the rhetoric does not match up with the reality of the politicians he supports. So you could say that you're anti-establishment, but then when you support Trump, who is now doing the bidding of the establishment, are you really anti-establishment? No. I can say that's fraudulent. I'm comfortable.
Okay, all right. Well, that's basically my argument against Tucker Carlson. So, okay, all right, I'll take it.
Saying he's a fraud. I'm comfortable saying almost every national leader that would be called a right-wing populist is a fraud. The best example that we can go to is this guy named Josh Hawley. He's the I don't
know who that is.
He's the Republican senator who most closely embodies the philosophy of right-wing populism. Now, why is he given that label? Because when it comes to some domestic economic policy issues, he bucks orthodoxy, at least in rhetoric. So, like, he will argue flat out against so-called free trade. He's done it within the past couple of years. He'll come out there and argue against the concept of free trade, argue for more protectionism. He argued for doing what Germany did with our wages. I believe it was him and Representative Pramila Jayapal, who's, of course, a Democrat and a lefty. They argued for temporarily nationalizing wages for small businesses. So, yes. Let's
look at this guy. Josh Hawley. Assume that's how it's spelled? Yeah. Senator Josh Hawley. Oh, shit, this person looks young. Oh, wait, who does this person look like? This person looks like an actor. Who does this person look like? I feel like I've seen multiple movies with this guy in him. Yeah, he does look a little bit like Nicolas Cage, doesn't he? Yeah. Yeah, he looks like a young Nick Cage. Like yeah, the before times. Like 1980s a little bit. Alright, well, respect where respect's given. Alright, Wikipedia, what is this guy about? Born 1979, sorry, holy shit, this guy is really young. Yeah, at 40, he's the youngest member of the U.S. Senate. Holy shit. Hawley is a fraud as well. Cast as the GOP leader after Trump, but like Trump, he's a faux populist. Fuck off. He himself is the son of a banker and a graduate of Stanford and Yale. It doesn't make you not a populist to be wealthy. That's not how it works. Anti-tech crusader. Best addiction. For life and power. Hawley opposed ballot measures to raise the minimum wage for Missouri workers and to get rid of the state's right-to-work legislation. Nice! Very pro-worker. Joined a lawsuit brought by 20 GOP-led states aimed at overturning the Affordable Care Act, including its protections for people with pre-existing conditions. And he campaigned for a Senate seat while claiming he would protect such people. He took donations from right-wing billionaires such as the Koch brothers. Ha! Now the Koch brother. Peter Thiel and Bernie Marcus, while enthusiastically endorsing Trump's tax cuts. Ooh. Very pro-worker. So yeah, here's the way in which he's actually a far-right populist. He advocates for less immigration. That's it. His brand of conservative nationalism. Yikes. Anyway, yeah, in my experience, that's what right populism always is. It just means anti-immigration. Like, every single time, it just means, like, what if we had less brown people in our country? That's what right-wing populism is every single time, you know? That's all I ever see from them consistently. So, okay, now we know. I mean, I need to look more into that guy before I'm comfortable, like, making any hard statements, but okay, Kyle, take it away.
In some ways, his economic approach is certainly not that of the hardcore libertarians who are totally in favor of every free trade deal and who would never want to nationalize wages for small businesses. Wait,
but there are no libertarians in the Republican Party. They have, well, there are. I mean, Rand Paul kind of, but they don't have the reach. The Republican Party position is not one of total free trade and total libertarianism at all. The Republican Party went back on NAFTA. We cut like free trade deals. We imposed tariffs on steel coming in from China. We've hurt our own economy, engaging in economic protectionism, which, by the way, has not served its intended goal of allowing us to better negotiate with China concerning, like, copyright infringement law. The idea that, like, he's bucking a trend by being anti-free trade is just not the case.
The closest thing that you could say represents a right-wing economic or right-wing populist in the country in terms of a national leader. Now, here's why I think he's a fraud. If you look through his record, his voting record doesn't match his rhetoric.
Oh!
Are you sensing a trend here? Whether it's Donald Trump or whoever who's so-called populist right, they end up doing standard establishment politics. So for Josh Hawley, you know, he supported the balanced budget amendment, which you will, in no way, shape, or form, could you do like any social safety net, or you'd at the very least have to strictly reduce the social safety net if you have a balanced budget amendment.
Kyle, this is
That is not populist at all. He says the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is unconstitutional. I don't think you could call yourself a populist and be against the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, whose job is literally to protect regular Americans from big financial institutions ripping them off.
Kyle,
so,
I'm talking.
You have a hard case to make there. Oh, I'm a populist, but I'm against the CFPB. He's also for right-to-work laws, which is anti-union legislation.
Kyle!
That is definitely not populist. One of the cornerstones of populism would be for the workers, namely for unions. Another one is he's not even for Obamacare, never mind Medicare for all. You know, real populist, you have to say would have to be for Medicare for all, because that's one of the biggest economic burdens Americans face is healthcare costs, and the overwhelming majority of the population, even in some polls, most Republicans want Medicare for all. He's not even for Obamacare, never mind Medicare for all. And also, by the way, this one's the nail in the coffin in my opinion, Josh Hawley supported the 2017 Republican tax cuts for the rich.
Kyle!
Don't tell me you're an economic populist, dog, because every now and then you go out there and say, yeah, free trade is bad, protectionism is good, and maybe we should nationalize wages because of COVID, or do UBI or whatever. No. On very few issues, he bucks orthodoxy, and most of the time he bucks orthodoxy, it's mostly in rhetoric, not in terms of substance. So that's where I would agree with Nathan. If he were to make the case that, hey, right-wing populism in terms of the national leadership, it's not real. There are no real elected right-wing populists. I would agree with Nathan. In fact, I'd probably be pushing that article that he wrote in the same way I pushed the Chomsky one and pushed the Jordan Peterson one.
Okay. So far, this has been a pretty good... I'm feeling pretty good. I'm riding high right now. So we need to see where it goes from here, okay? Maybe if we stop the video right here, then we can officially bring Kyle into the elite, you know, cabal of anti-class reductionist comrades. But you know how it works with roller coasters, okay? Because I have a feeling we can't keep going up forever.
So, but he didn't make that argument. The argument went a hell of a lot further than that. So here's where Nathan is wrong. The idea that the populist left and the populist right cannot meet where they actually agree. And actually, let me establish that the populist right is a real thing first, because it is. It is so flippant, and sorry, Nathan, but it's true, so dumb to immediately go to Mussolini and Hitler when talking about right-wing populists. My dude, they are fascists. They are
And we start falling. How do you think Mussolini and Hitler got to power? Yes, they're fascists. We know. That's why we're that's why we're connecting the... That's the point. Yes.
This guy.
Fascists. Right-wing populism is not just fascism.
Then what is it?
Top 5, 8, Mercedes boxes.
Then what is it?
Like I told you, the definition of populism, a political approach that strives to appeal to ordinary people who feel their concerns are disregarded by the established elite groups.
Yes. And if you're a mass of quote-unquote ordinary people whose problems are all the fucking darkies in your country stealing your jobs, the feminism ruining your women, you're going to turn towards institutional solutions that will address these systemic issues. Right-wing populism isn't by necessity like a economic doctrine. It's a broader social reaction to progress. Every single time we see right-wing populism manifest in this country, it is either fascist or fascist-leaning. Every single time. Like who else? Find me an alternative. What else is there? Aren't you making this seem like a slippery slope? No, it's not a slippery slope, it's a fucking cliff. If you're a right-winger and you're a populist, you are either a fascist or will be a fascist. It's not a slope. That's it. It's not. I'm not doing this gradient shit. You're either on the fucking cliff or you're not. That's it. Okay? That's it. With regards to right-wing find me American history right-wing populist. You know, we had a right-wing populist movement at the same time as Hitler. You know, in response to the Great Depression, they were Nazis. They sympathized with. And they did call themselves America First, by the way. That was one of the the divisions, you know, of like American Nazi groups before we entered World War II. They were sympathetic to Hitler and his claims because the right-wing populist mythos plays out the same way every single way. Our country was once glorious. The group of power who deserve to have power, which is invariably white men, once had that power, but it has been robbed of them by cultural Marxists, by academics, by feminists, by Jews, by immigrants, by whatever, and we must return to that former glory by adulating and by celebrating and by empowering that demographic over all others. We have to curtail immigration to keep our country pure. We have to engage in economic protectionism so we're no longer reliant on other countries for our imports and exports. We need to turn our country into an insular, isolationist, working horse for demographic power. Like it plays out the exact same time, or the same way every single time. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's
move on.
So here's an example of a right-wing populist. You ready? And there are many of them in terms of regular people all around the country. Not the leadership, who I agree are mostly frauds. There are plenty of right-wing populists all around the country. So what's a right-wing populist? A right-winger, somebody who describes themselves as a right-winger, and they're in favor of unions. They're in favor of stopping these terrible trade deals that outsource jobs and maybe reversing some of those trade deals.
Okay, this is another thing. Keep in mind that Kyle Kulinski is an economic protectionist, which means that he has dumb fuck ideas when it comes to economics, okay? But I'm not going to get to that now.
They're in favor of a living wage. They're in favor of Medicare for all. But they happen to disagree with us on the issue of affirmative action, on the issue of immigration, on the issue of abortion. That's somebody who I would call a right-wing populist. And that, my friend, is a significant chunk of the American population.
You just described the Nazi Party. You realize the Nazis also implemented social welfare programs, also implemented healthcare programs, also... You literally just described... Not for minorities? Yeah, of course not for minorities. Do you really think the conservatives in this country who want there to be a better medical care system would also pay for it to be subsidized in African-American communities? Do you really think they would allow it for immigrant groups? No, of course not. The problem with these fascist groups is they're usually not particularly honest about the fact that they only want social policies for a specific demographic of people. Pretty sure the Nazis were not for unions? No, but they pushed for them. Nazis claimed that the working class in Nazi Germany was being disempowered by the financing of the global corporate elite, and that one of the ways they needed to be empowered was through unionization. Now, the Nazi Party did have a national union that worked through, that was done by the Nazi Party, like it was a Nazi union, basically, but they did operate off of that rhetoric. Do you really think that all the Republicans in this country, all these former Rust Belt good old boys, they just want the steel jobs back? Do you really think these people who have been voting for Republicans for years would actually vote in somebody who would be interested in perpetuating workers' rights? Then why didn't Bernie Sanders reach out to these people? And a follow-up question: if you hate immigrants so much that the presence of immigrants to you is worse than whatever conceivable benefit you could get from all the social welfare programs that Bernie Sanders was promising, are you really in favor of workers' rights? If you're like, yeah, I support all these entitlement programs, but brown people in the country, I don't know about that. I don't think I'm willing to trade that for that. Are you really pro workers' rights, or are you more anti-immigration? Where are your priorities at?
Significant chunk. You want to know why? I see the polls. The polls are crystal clear. When you have most polls showing that the majority...
Do you really believe all right-leaning populists are inherently fascist? Yeah, the Republican Party is literally mostly voted on by fascists. Trump has been literally America first, fucking gun down the protesters, fuck everyone, fuck immigrants, all brown people are rapists. I'm a rapist, but you don't mind it when I do it. For 4 years, and he has a 90% approval rating in the Republican Party. Yes, Republican voters are fascists. The only reason our country is still ostensibly a democracy is because the institutions we've built up are strong enough to resist their fascism. If we had weaker institutions, like, say, for example, the Weimar Republic did, yes, this would be a fascist country. 100%. Every single fucking time the Republicans come to power, they literally, the disenfranchisement, the way they tried to deny voting to large swaths of the population, the voting booths they cut out, their clear and open contempt for our democratic process, yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, Republicans are fascists. Easily. Yeah. I'm not breaking bread with these people. Fuck them. These people's brains are broken, and I don't want to work with them. They don't share my solutions, and they don't care about workers' rights.
Of Americans, every poll at this point shows the majority of Americans support Medicare for all. Some polls show a majority of Republicans support Medicare for all. Are there people in this country that are genuinely socially conservative but economically leftist? Yes! So what does Nathan do when you say...
Okay, I know Kyle Kulinski is like a soakdem. You're not economically leftist for wanting fucking unions in healthcare, okay? Very important to denote that, okay?
Hey, populist right politics, it's just a fraud. And let's talk about Mussolini and Hitler. What you're saying is let's take all these regular people who are not remotely near freaking fascists. You're smearing them and basically accusing them.
Bullshit. The average Republican in this country would vote for a Hitler-like figure in 2024 easily. 100%. Easily. Oh, yeah, 100%. I would bet my fucking life on it. If we went far, a person who, like, made it through the Republican primaries talking about how democracy was no longer suiting the needs of the average American people because the average politician is only beholden to their corporate interests, and they're different. They're working only off their grassroots donations and their own acquired wealth, and when they get to power, they're going to truly wield the power of the silent majority to do what needs to be done to fix this country. They would absolutely vote for this person. Yes, 100%. Keep in mind, when Hitler came to power, he wasn't talking about concentration camps yet. But Trump literally came to power talking about how Mexicans were rapists and murderers. Came to power talking about how Muslims shouldn't really be a part of America. Came to power talking about how he's gleefully going to commit war crimes and torture people in the Middle East, okay? They are not far off. Quit fucking whitewashing these people, okay?
Them of fascism. And that is, I think, such sloppy thinking. And it's really sad because Nathan Robinson is a smart dude, and I would not expect this kind of sloppy thinking from him. Yes, Nathan, at the national level, most leaders who call themselves populist right or have been described as populist right, they're frauds because really, ultimately, they do standard establishment politics. But no, the whole concept of being populist right is not equivalent to...
Hold on. There are so many working-class white people who are populists who voted for Obama, then Trump. They aren't fucking Nazis. I didn't say Nazi. I said fascist. Thank you kindly. No, yeah, and a lot of them are fascists, yeah. The people who voted for Trump absolutely have an ideological disposition to fascism, or at the very least are permissive of it. Why do you think all of these skeptics online went from being, like, edgy Trump supporters to literal neo-Nazis over the course of 4 years? If you've been watching the progress of American discourse over the past 4 years, and you legitimately don't think there's some sort of inherent link between republicanism and fascism, then you haven't been paying attention, okay? You are shockingly ignorant. These people, those mentalities, invariably drive people down towards fascism. Many of them are already there. Many of them will never be able to be pulled from that position. This isn't me being conspiratorial. Talk to your average Republican. Have you seen the kind of media they circulate? Have you ever looked at MAGA Twitter? Have you ever looked at Donald.win? These people are not just everyday, honest, good, hard-working white folk who just want their country back to the way it was. These people are fucking lunatics!
Let's see. Oh, hey, Lunar. Sorry, got distracted by the Vosh's ranting. Okay, Donald's that way. Stonehill sold this evening. Yeah. Okay, people are over here. Come on, let's do it. What is this? What is that thing? Cluster Jewel! I have no idea what's going on. And I died. I alt-tabbed the chat. My bad. Was enchanted by Vosh's sweet, sweet voice. He has like the voice of Zach Galifianakis. If he pretty much it's pretty close to what it sounds like. Nothing else add to it, other than just him. They killed the boss already. Doing good, how are you? Another delirium.
You will experience no real pain. That will soon change.
life force. Come.
Whoa. I already killed everything. One. Oh, it's a boss.
I think we're on the brink of a break.
Okay. Another one. Another one. I had 3. Maybe I didn't. Oh well. $7,000. People are ridiculous. Yeah, so life. He probably has like at least 12,000 hours in the game. I am sure of it.
They're fucking crazy! These are not what you're thinking of right now is you're thinking of your grandpa. That's what you're thinking of. You're like, oh, well, Gramp's a little conservative. Nah, ask Grandpa about illegal immigrants, okay? And wait, and fucking make sure you have a gun on you because they're probably going to go fucking feral and attack the nearest person, okay? Nah. Do not. You may humanize these people because they are humans, but do not absolve them of their ideological deficiencies because you personally know of quote-unquote good conservatives, okay? These people are fucking crazy.
To fascism, and they're not all frauds. There are plenty of regular Americans who I would call populist right and who the polls would show are populist right. So let me answer Nathan's question. And this is kind of to reiterate what Crystal Ball was saying in her segment on this when she responded to it. Take yes for an answer when somebody agrees with you, dude.
But they don't agree with me. I have never met a Republican who agrees with me on anything, on any issue. They'll say stuff like, we need to help the working class. Where do they agree on solutions?
They don't.
Why didn't they vote for Bernie Sanders? Why didn't they push for Bernie Sanders? Bernie Sanders was the most aggressively populist pro-worker candidate at like so far beyond the limits of what we thought was possible in this country. And they didn't do it. They didn't bite. Because to them, fucking immigration and PC culture, so pervasive and so negative, they would have chosen that over the chance of really bolstering the working class in this country.
If somebody says, hey, I'm with you on Medicare for all, you know what you do? You say, great, let's get Medicare for all.
Wait, but that's the difference. That's a solution. They don't do that on Rising. That's a solution. If a Republican comes to me and says, yes, let's get Medicare for all, which has never happened to me, by the way. I've talked with a lot of conservatives online. I have not yet a single one who said they wanted Medicare for all. Find me a single. I've been doing that. I talk to these people every day of my life. I have never met a person who said that, okay? Once. But yeah, if they say that and they advocate for a solution, I'll work with them on that solution. But they don't do that on The Rising. They just talk about their shared problems with corporate America, which implicitly suggests to the left-leaning viewers that Sagar and Tucker Carlson are as legitimate threats to corporate hegemony as an actual leftist would be.
Now, when that same person says, I'm against the right to choose in all circumstances, there should be 0 abortions, you go, okay, on that, not only am I not going to work with you, I'm going to fight you every step of the way. That's what I'm going to do. You understand? Oh, you're against gay rights? Well, I totally disagree with you on that, and I will destroy you in an argument on that, and I will not align with you on that. And where we disagree, my answer is hell no. I'm not giving an inch, bitch. But when we agree, why would I say on an issue where you agree with somebody, no, I refuse to agree because there are other issues where we don't agree.
Okay, so I'm going to be charitable to Kyle Kulinski here, and I'm going to say this one last time. This seems to be a very common misunderstanding of Nathan Robinson's article, which I have read multiple times now, and I am very confident he does not say this. Nathan Robinson is not saying you have to not work together on shared solutions with people you otherwise disagree with. I am willing to work with a great many people who I disagree with. I am an anarchist. There are lots of people with whom I have disagreements. In order for me to support anything, I have to support it with people with whom I have some disagreements. What Nathan Robinson is saying is that there are not pushes to work towards the same solutions between right and left populists, and that additionally, the idea that right populists have some sort of potential to address the problems in this country is misleading, because all they are actually pushing for is fascism. So yes, if a conservative pushed for Medicare for all, I would work arm in arm with them to push for Medicare for all. Shared, together. Very gay. But that does not mean that I will pretend that their approach is as legitimate as mine. And I do not, broadly, have to acknowledge the mythology that this is in any way, shape, or form a common thing that happens.
What are you, 5? Is that how we approach politics? No, that's not how we approach politics. And Bernie Sanders showed us the way. How many times have there been alliances between the left and libertarians where they agree? Criminal justice reform,
where
NSA
they
spying,
agree,
ending the wars. Should Bernie not have worked with Mike Lee to try to stop the genocide in Yemen? Because Mike Lee has really bad views on immigration. He's a really bad guy.
Again, everything he's describing right now is a solution, a specific goal that you can push with other people. Now listen, again, like this Dono was saying, I want to be charitable here. I think that Kyle Kulinski is just misunderstanding the difference between agreeing on problems and agreeing on solutions. I'm going to continue listening. I'm going to see if we move past this misunderstanding.
So they're frauds, don't have anything to do with them. If you say don't have anything to do with them, that means also don't have anything to do with them on Yemen where you agree with them. I hate this mindset. I hate this approach. I honestly think it's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life. Because
what Kyle is describing right now is called tactical unity, and it's something I talk about all the time. I've said this with you guys. I'll say it right here. If a TERF, scum as they may be, wants to push for abortion rights, I'll work with them to do that. I won't pretend that they're my ally, but I'll work with them to do that. If a Nazi wants to push for Medicare for all, I will advocate for Medicare for all. I mean, assuming they're pushing for the same version of it, and they never will, because Nazis will never push for any social program that helps non-white people. But if they did, I would work with them on that. I work with liberals on shared issues. I recently did a debate with Destiny, with whom I have many disagreements, in a shared dislike of Nazis. And I think that's a wonderful thing. I think it's important for us lefties to recognize that we are not a supermajority in this country, and that in order for us to get things done, we will have to tactically ally with people who have some shared and selective interests. And I value that. And I criticize leftists who are so ideologically driven that they don't do that. But I will say this once more. That isn't what happens on Rising. They don't talk about solutions. Usually what happens is they'll talk. So here's the topic. Google has a gay pride flag for the month, their LGBT month. And Crystal Ball will say, yeah, well, this is good, I guess, but we have to recognize that corporate hegemony is never going to sincerely, you know, promote the interests of gay people. This is just a virtue signaling attempt to get their attention. And Soccer will say, you're completely right. This is just virtue signaling. Corporations have been brainwashed by neo-Marxist post-Frankfurt academics who are trying to disseminate an anti-white agenda by educating the wealthy and the children of the wealthy to hate white people in the pursuit of a wokeness cult. And Crystal Ball will say, well, I don't know if I agree about that, but I do agree that corporations are bad. And Sagar will say, yes, corporations are bad. You know who else believes that? Tucker Carlson. Let's go to a Tucker Carlson clip, folks. Cue 2 minutes of Tucker Carlson in the middle of a segment about how black people aren't humans, talking about how corporations are bad because they support black people, but in like an insincere way. Then they cut back to Rising. Crystal Ball opens her mouth. Yeah, wow. You know, you gotta hand it to him when he says stuff that could be a right or left-leaning position that's really kind of ambiguous, you know? And then Sagar will say, yeah, I completely agree. I really do think the insincere attempts to appeal to the interests of BLM on the part of corporation really signals how corporations are furthering the downfall of Western civilization. Really, it is nearly impossible for conservatives to imagine themselves living in the glorious, you know, culturally hegemonous America that they once lived in back 50, 60 years ago, as long as these corporations continue to shill for anti-white agendas. And then Crystal Ball will say, well, I don't know if I agree about that, but at least we agree corporations are bad. And then the segment ends. That's it. Tell me that wouldn't be a segment. Tell me that wouldn't be a segment. That's Rising. That's exactly what would happen. For all you know, you don't know. For all you know, I just plagiarized a script. I don't know. I haven't watched all their shit. Maybe. Anyway, the point that I'm making here is that their banter never is about solutions. They argue over the solutions. That's the funny thing. Rising kind of proves my point. They both agree that something is a problem, but like in a very broad, non-committal way. But then they'll have completely different solutions. Sagar will talk about the death of the West and how, you know, wokeness is being used to put white men on the pyre, and Crystal Ball will like limply make some argument that actually equality is good. They disagree on the solution, so what is there for them to work together towards, you know?
Do you want to know why everybody seems to understand, or most people seem to understand, when you talk about how the left and so-called moderate Democrats should get along on issues where we agree, everybody goes, well, duh, because you agree on those issues. The fact that Biden would pick a Supreme Court justice that's to the left of who Trump would pick. The fact that Biden would pick somebody like Merrick Garland, who's a centrist, and Trump keeps picking all these, you know, far-right justices who just happened to break recently, by the way. But, you know, Trump is going to pick further right justices than Joe Biden. Why am I allowed to say I agree with Joe Biden on that over Trump, or I agree with Joe Biden on gay rights, or I agree with Joe Biden, let's not pull out of the Iran deal when Trump pulled out of the Iran deal? Why am I allowed to say that, and that's okay, when Joe Biden is a war criminal? Joe Biden's a war criminal. He has the blood of hundreds of thousands of innocent people on his hands. He supported the Iraq War.
Wait, Kyle, you can't make the argument that people who did that are dumb when you did that for 8 months. Wait, Kyle, you can't make the argument that people who are too ideologically driven to work with Biden are dumb when that is exactly what you did up until like a week ago. You can't do that, Kyle. Kyle. Kyle's literally like, and that's what I've always been saying. These Bernie busters are dumb because they're too ideologically driven. They're too quote unquote principled for them to recognize that Biden will do better things than Trump will, and that at the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters. And he's like, well, wait, Kyle, isn't Kyle a Bernie or buster? I think Trump tweeting out that when the looting starts, the shooting starts was enough for Kyle to move off the Bernie or bust position.
So why, if Nathan
when
was
the looting starts, the shooting starts. You try saying that out loud, okay? There's a reason why Trump had to tweet that. If he said that at a rally, he would have stumbled over it.
consistent, he would say the left should have nothing to do with any moderate Democrats. Why? Because according to his conception of the world, they're frauds. He's a war criminal, case closed, so then even on the issues where you agree with him, you can't work with him and you can't say that you agree with him. See, notice how it only cuts one way. It only cuts one way. Everybody understands, well, duh, the areas where you agree with the moderate Democrats, whether it's gay rights, abortion, social issues, court picks, well, obviously we agree on that and we'll work with them on that because, duh, we agree with them. But when it comes to Sagar, and Sagar says, hey, I agree with you guys, let's stop outsourcing jobs, Nathan's response to that is, you're a fascist, you're a fraud, and I want to have nothing to do with you.
No. Nathan Robinson didn't say he's a fascist and a fraud because he doesn't want to outsource jobs. He says he's a fascist because Sagar is literally a fascist.
What?
Who promotes far-right conspiracy theories about political correctness being used to destroy Western civilization. And he said that Sagar is a fraud because he literally talked about how...
fascism? Huh? That's like anti-fascist.
What is the box? Oh no. Are we cutting into the middle of the segment? You know what? We're keeping this in for the YouTube. What do we have?
Would you like to know
What do we
how
have
this
in here
car
today?
fits into the grand machine, or do you plan on? And now you see that I am.
Savor these last breaths.
Oh my god, it's a baby. It's a baby box. Hello. Hey, you're going in a YouTube segment this time. No way I'm editing around this. Hello. Oh, he's purring so loud. Yeah.
I really do hate the idea of dying.
Look at him.
But, oh, go on then.
He's way more handsome than I am.
Time to see how the paupers.
Yeah?
Go on.
He's chill. He's in the box.
You're no stranger to murder.
Yeah?
The weak deserve death.
Yeah.
I've seen your strength. Take
I'm choking
from me
myself
what you
out
will.
here. Yep. There we go. Who wants to eat?
He'll never even suspect, boss.
Good little baby. There we go. Hit the angle. Yeah? You're gonna hit me. Oh yeah? You wanna try and hit my face? Cool. Whoop. Whoop. Yeah? What does it mean? Alright. Here. Enjoy your... There you go. Enjoy your little box. There you go. Hey, you're safe now. Little fucking violence, baby.
I cannot do this yet.
Yeah? There we go. Well, he can fuck around for a bit. I'll let him in here for a little while, you know? Let's see what kind of damage he does.
See, with this approach to politics, you get literally nothing ever done. And you burn every single freaking bridge. And he refuses to acknowledge, and there are a lot of people who refuse to acknowledge this simple concept, this simple notion. You're allowed to say yes when we agree, and no when we disagree, and even beyond that, yes when we agree, and no, and your beliefs are abysmal, abhorrent, and beyond the pale when we really disagree. So I really think it's sloppy thinking to argue that there's
Look, I just want to. Listen. I've been politically active for a little while now, just a year and a half. But I've interacted with some pretty big names in like the political scene here on YouTube, at least. Not real life politics, of course, but in the YouTube scene. I have never met a self-described conservative who shared a single goal with me. Not once. I never have. I never, ever, ever have. I have never seen one of these people. Hunter Avallone? Well, Hunter Avallone stopped being a conservative, so there you go. That's what it took, right? I just, I don't, you know?
no such thing as populist right. The whole concept is tainted and ridiculous. And if we, to the extent it exists, it's this group of insanely terrible people.
What about gun rights? Okay, you're right. I'm terribly sorry. I should acknowledge. I am being a little hyperbolic. I do share gun rights interests with a lot of conservative-leaning people, and there are some niche issues on civic improvement that I agree with regards to conservatives. But as for this like broader populist right thing, fuck the NRA though? Yeah, of course, fuck the NRA. But as for the broader populist right thing, these examples Kyle Kalinske is giving, like, oh, well, they want Medicare for all. Like, okay, fucking please, God, find me some populist rightists online who will talk with me about implementing Medicare for all, you know? Find me these populist rightists online. And the problem is, when I think economic populism, I think let's improve workers' rights. When they think economic populism, they think let's get rid of immigration. So there's a very, very different approach to these things, like from where you come from.
Bolsonaro, Marine Le Pen, Mussolini, and Hitler. And so you're equating regular Americans who are like for Medicare for all, for living wage, for unions, but like against abortion and for immigration restrictions. You're equating them with the worst monsters in history. It's just, it is not...
The average Republican would have voted for Hitler. Or, well, there wasn't really an election, but the average Republican would have supported Hitler. 100%. Yeah, that's the easiest call in my life. Yeah, definitely 100%. Super duper easy. There have literally been studies done on the authoritarian brain. Tend to be lower IQ, more fearful, more impressionable. They tend to respond differently to different emotional responses. I'm not joking. This is true. The authoritarian brain, they're very submissive, like to authority. Like they want to, you know, kind of just be like placed under the thumb. This is weak science, TBH. No, it's not. The studies done on the emotional and intellectual predilections of people who tend to support authoritarianism are pretty substantiated. I know the study. There are multiple studies, and it's known that conservatives tend to have a lower IQ. Anyway, yeah, just there are consistent. What about fascist skull shapes? And we should know the skull shape of the fascists is one most pronounced, one we could share both in that of the average brown shirt and of the average Republican voter. It is known, of course, naturally.
It's sloppy thinking. It's broad thinking.
Hitler came to power through election vote? No, he didn't. Why are people saying this? Hitler got like 33% of the vote in an election, but he lost, and then afterwards he was appointed by Hindenburg, who thought that by appointing Adolf Hitler, he could capitulate to the far right. He was appointed. He didn't win the election.
It's generalized thinking, and it's not even the same approach that you would take to dealing with moderate Democrats who might be war criminals. For some reason, the nuance is allowed for the moderate Democrats. The nuance is not allowed for the libertarians, where you agree with them on war. And the nuance is not allowed for the populist right or paleo-conservatives, where you would agree with them on trade.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Paleo-conservative is a term I've only heard used for Nazis. Do you agree on trade with Nazis? Yeah, that's like a Fuentes meme. Are you kidding me right now? What? Okay, guys. Don't do economic protectionism, okay? Listen, don't do economic protectionism, all right? Just don't. Don't do it. Cutting immigration won't make anyone's lives better, okay? It won't improve anyone's lives, all right? Don't. Why would I ever want to agree with a paleo? You know what? Every single person I've ever heard call themselves a paleo-conservative wants to end all immigration. Why would we ever do that? Kyle said Tucker and Stefan are paleo-conservatives. Well, Stefan Molyneux is a Nazi, and Tucker is a fascist. He's talking about trade, not immigration. Yeah, but the two are related. From an economic perspective, immigration is the trade of human labor. It's a form of economic transaction. You need immigration to facilitate certain trade relations. They're related. Have you ever met a person who is anti-free trade but pro-free immigration? They tend to come together.
1 to 0.5.
He's not arguing to restrict immigration. If you agree with somebody who you call a paleoconservative on trade, yeah, Kyle is anti-free trade but pro-immigration. These are such incompatible positions. Oh god. Oh no. Are we gonna have to do the economic protectionism memes right now? I can't do it. I can't do it. Okay.
Take yes for an answer. When there are frauds who are pretending to be populist right, but ultimately aren't, sure, call them out. By all means, I'll be right there with you. I just did it. I called out Josh Hawley's entire record. But to the extent that there are people that actually are populist right and actually do agree with you, of course you work with them on the issues where you agree.
Okay.
And you
okay. Oh, his delivery is grating against me here.
disagree on the issues, and the argument is you're legitimizing him. But then she gets it from the other direction too. The right-wingers hate her because she argues for left-wing politics. So what she's like, we do our show, we agree where we agree, and we disagree where we disagree. That's what we do. Nathan says this, he doubles down. I have regretfully come to the conclusion that The Hill, owned by one of Trump's close personal friends, puts on Rising mainly for the purpose of trying to trick leftists into softening on Trump and see nationalist racists as preferable to moderate Democrats.
The 100% true, by the way. If you've watched any Rising, this is literally their fucking job, okay? It's to take people who are burnt out because they're sad Bernie lost, and to go, hey, doesn't it suck how all those elites keep fucking up our chances at a populist working class revolution? You know, there are some people on the right who also want that. You know, we don't have to agree with Tucker Carlson on everything, but he does call out the elites pretty often, and it's pretty based how, you know, for all his failings, Trump does call out the elites pretty often. Like, yeah, no, this is literally their job. What's that meme from the Political Compass meme subreddit of, like, the crying Bernie supporter, and then the guy, the alt-right guy wearing a lib-left green mask is comforting, saying, hey, sad Bernie lost. Wouldn't voting for Trump teach those establishment Dems a lesson? You know what I'm talking about? It's basically that.
What? That is absurd. That absolutely is not what they're doing. It's honestly laughable. Crystal herself was just saying, when Trump was threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act, she was saying the same thing I was saying, which is like, oh my god, I'm gonna have to vote for Biden because this is way too far.
Who said that?
Absolutely is not what they're doing. It's honestly laughable. Crystal herself was just saying, when Trump was threatening...
Oh, wow. Crystal, somebody who claims to be on the left, said they'd be voting for the left-leaning candidate in the election? Even her? Wow, that sure is a rousing endorsement of the bar we're setting for this show's degree of political responsibility. Oh, wow. Even Crystal said she'd vote for... Oh, my God. And I bet Sauger put up quite a compelling debate for that one. Biden is left-leaning. Don't be stupid. Left-leaning and right-leaning are relativistic positions. There are two presidential candidates.
Threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act, she was saying the same thing I was saying, which is like, oh my god, I'm gonna have to vote for Biden because this is way too far. See, what Nathan did there is he didn't like the response from Crystal, and so he resorted to, now I'm gonna attack their motives. And so now it's a nefarious show, and the underlying goal is to like disengage the left and have the...
I don't know, boys. Those media elites might be a little closer than we think. Michael Brooks, who's also taken a tepid position on Rising. Kyle Kalinske, Crystal Ball, and Cigar and Jetty. I don't know. I don't know. Looks like they're having a lot of fun. I'm glad. To be fair, Brooks and Ball happen to be friends. Sure, but that's not going to make me any less critical. To be fair, Vosh, he called out Sauger pretty fairly in this vid. I don't care if you call out Sauger. He's a fascist. You have to call out Crystal Ball for participating in the framework of a show that pulls people to the right. Also, where has he criticized Sauger here? He said he disagrees with Sauger. That's it. Like,
lefty, you know, racist right-wingers is preferable to lefties. First of all, no. Second of all,
coming from a Bernie or Buster,
why couldn't the dynamic equally be the exact opposite? That, oh, you know, Sagar's presence on the show is really to get right-wingers to have more left-wing views, and it provides a gateway into socialism.
Because it doesn't do that. Because it doesn't do that. Because they talk about problems like workers' rights, and then they pretend right-leaning people have solutions to this, and then Sagar goes off on some conspiracy bullshit for 5 minutes. They don't do that. That's not how the show works. You can't just putting a left-leaning person and a right-leaning person together in the same studio does not guarantee an equal degree of transmissibility of political opinions. The pipeline does not always flow both ways. The structure of the show which is, by the way, produced by a Republican on a platform called The Hill, which is, by the way, run by one of Trump's close personal friends, believe it or not, might be designed in such a way to push people to the right. Unbelievably, you know. Unless you think they would finance a show for the explicit purpose of pulling people away from their political allies.
See, that's the thing that these guys never acknowledge, never talk about, and it drives me crazy. There's all this talk about a gateway. Oh, it's a gateway to the far right. That's what this is serving as, gateway to the far right. If there's a gateway into something, you also understand there's a gateway out, correct? Correct?
No! What the fuck? No, that's not how it works. Oh yeah, dude, 100%. Oh yeah, when you move from Thunderfoot to Sargon of Akkad to Stefan Molyneux, it actually goes the other way. You know, lots of people go from Stefan Molyneux to Sargon of Akkad to Thunderfoot. Yeah, there are tons of people who started watching neo-Nazis and came out of it being fans of Anita Sarkeesian. That's definitely how it works. No! He's literally like ignoring the way the alt-right pipeline works.
Gateway's going.
Do you know what a current is?
I watched.
Do you think that if you have a pipe full of water, the water just flows in both directions? Here's a hint. If you go into your bathroom and you take a wrench and knock out one of the pipes underneath your sink, it should be in the cabinet, you will notice the water in it only flowed one way. The water didn't go like... The water won't come in from both sides in both directions. There's a current. It goes in one direction.
Correct? So if somebody's willing to say, hey, we agree that outsourcing jobs is bad. Oh, look, they're getting along on the issue. Let me see what else this person has to say who's on the left, while I, as a right-winger, watch the show.
You ready for my hot take? Outsourcing jobs is not necessarily a bad thing at all. I think the American economy is robust, and we are very, 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 very capable of forming a strong domestic economy based off the service sector work that we can only do within our own country for people of our own country. And what's more, engaging in the sort of neoliberal globalized trade that these people rail against, and I rail against, but for different reasons, gives us an opportunity to diversify the strengths of our economy, invest in other nations, build diplomatic relations with countries who will one day be powerhouses equivalent to us, and in the long run facilitate a much better economy. Do you think that, like, the American economy would be fixed if, like, every American consumer had to pay twice as much for a new car, but we brought all the factories back? Do you think like that would be like that'd be better? Like, woo, 30,000 people in the Rust Belt got their jobs back. Woo! Now, of course, even for those people, wages do not keep up with productivity because that hasn't happened to any other industry, and now everything's going to be more expensive because these workers are being paid more, which means that the corporations are going to have to sell at a higher price, which means that people in America are more likely to buy foreign cars because those foreign companies are outsourcing, which means that we're going to have to introduce tariffs on foreign products. Basically any product that we, for some economic reason, bring back to this country, we're going to have to implement tariffs on the corollary, the stuff that comes in from other countries, which means that, hey, all that shit you guys like buying that comes from Japan and Germany, fucking sorry, that shit's gonna cost twice as much. Yeah, you liked your iPhones being 1,000, how about them being 2,000? But it's okay, guys, we brought back these antiquated dying jobs that are going to be automated in 15 years anyway. That's gonna, you know, fucking, that was worth it. Economics is complicated. People have a tendency to blame the wrong things for problems. In a capitalist economy, which is an economy that we live in, whether we like it or not, really sorry, that's the one we live in, labor and capital need to flow freely across borders in order for us to maximize profits. Now, there are two things that we can do for that, okay? We can either hurt the planet and the entire economy of our country by obfuscating that process and trying to restrain the transmission of labor and capital, or we cannot do that and instead use all of our extra money to invest in social programs and invest in our diversified economy to allow people to adjust to the way our economy works today. I mean, Bosch, don't you think there are some moderate conservative populists who aren't really fascist but ultimately just want some kind of universal safety net? If they would be voting Democrat. Because Republicans take away social safety nets like relentlessly every time they're given the opportunity to effect one. So no, they wouldn't be a conservative. If they actually cared about that, they wouldn't be like a conservative. If they were moderate, then they would recognize that Democrats are more likely to get that across. They could be misinformed, but I'll be honest, guys. All those Republicans who are like, oh, well, I'm actually not racist and not sexist, and actually I'm pro-worker, just I can't stand abortion, you know? You know what? Fuck them. Fuck you. I don't care. Fuck you. I don't care. I'm sorry, I don't give a shit. Abortion has been legal in this country for goddamn near 50 fucking years, and you people are still whining over it, okay? Holy shit. I don't care. Quit holding back the entirety of the fucking country because you're mad you lost a Supreme Court decision.
Why can't she deconvert people as much as Sagar can convert people
All right, we got him.
to right-wing beliefs?
Is Mitt Romney, in your opinion, a fascist? No, because he's not a populist. Mitt Romney is a very strong institutionalist. Very much a corporate, you know, suit and tie, by the process. He does not go on stage and rail about how the working people of this country need to be brought back to their former glory. So if he was a populist, he might have to appeal to certain social positions that would lead him towards fascism. Yeah, he's just a corporatist, sorry.
See that you're not allowed to entertain. The pipeline and the gateway only works to go to the right. What do you think is gonna happen? Of course everybody's gonna say, piss off, bro, if they're not already 100% in your little clique. This is on a platform that is not an outsider platform. As I told you guys before, this show is deprioritized in the algorithm. My show, you know whose isn't? The Hill. Because it is owned by a corporation. And so they got through all the algorithm deprioritization stuff, and so this is why they grow so much faster than all the other lefty channels. They do a good show, but it's not just because they do a good show. It's
all the other lefty channels on a network owned by a Trump friend and run by a Republican.
And they're all over the place. So you don't think that people who are saying the things that they're saying, you don't think like management is like always on their last nerve with them? They are. I happen to know they are. So this idea that there's like, this grand plan where the puppet masters are pulling the strings and really we're using Crystal just to, make Trump and the Republicans look good, even though she always goes after them. It's Nathan, what are you doing, man?
I don't Nathan never said that she was part of some conspiracy. I don't think that Crystal Ball is some sort of like deep state plant to make the left look bad. I just think she's a cynical, irresponsible grifter who might be stupid enough to think she's doing something positive. Kyle Kalinske, the way you run your channel is more than enough proof that it is entirely possible to further really bad opinions while being very sincerely progressive and left-leaning. No, I'm sorry, but like, it doesn't have to be a conspiracy. Crystal is smart. Well, there can be selective intelligences, it's very possible to be generally intelligent but still misguided in some senses. Yeah, I guess, I don't know, as an addendum to that, like, God. The idea of somebody like Kyle Kalinske thinking we can economically ally with people like paleo-conservatives because we both disagree with free trade is really scary to me. Because anytime those people get power, they're not really fighting against free trade, they're fighting against immigration. Do you really fucking think, do you actually believe that Republican populists give a fuck about free trade? These people are all backed by corporate fucking billionaires, okay? Do you really think these people are going to put a stop to that? These people care about immigration. That's what they care about. That's why Trump propped himself up as some sort of big, we're gonna bring the jobs back. Do you know how many jobs Trump has brought back to America from foreign investment and from outsourcing? You wanna guess? It might not be zero, but it's a really fucking small number. That's for goddamn sure. You know how much work he's done to interrupt, disrupt, and destroy our immigration process? A massive amount. That is their priority. When these conservatives get together, they are not talking about how unjust it is that outsourcing happens. They're talking about immigration. They talk about brown people coming in. They talk about their jobs being stolen by people coming into the country. They talk about illegal immigrants raping and murdering. That's what they care about. That's what they talk about, okay? They are not these principled economic, God help me. If conservative populists actually fucking cared about issues like free trade, I would love to talk about it with them, but they never do. The ones who are open enough about their positions to actually talk about their real beliefs are always talking about white ethno-states. So, yeah, I don't know. Just... Oh, and here we can end with a call to action. Not that anyone will make it this far through so long and so meandering a video, okay? Here's my ending call to action, all right? I would love to have a conversation with Kyle Kalinske about the difference between allying with people over problems and allying with people over solutions. That's it. Doesn't have to be a debate. Kyle, it doesn't have to be a debate, Kyle. But I would love to have that conversation. I'd like to talk about it. It's very frustrating, as somebody who argues with conservatives day in and day out, to hear other people arguing that I can find something in common, at least argumentatively, with some of the people I argue with, when my experience has told me that is not the case.
I think just the Warlock chose
So hopefully that's a conversation we can have. Trust me, I would love to live in America where conservatives have at least some good takes. Don't spam his fucking...
Yeah,
Screw him. He probably sucks.
I was.
You were definitely the focus target.
Tunnel Shadow Priest. Yeah, I think maybe if we encounter that next time, maybe we try the Shadow Priest and we try and out DPS the Hots, and then hammer order on the Druid. Might be able to work.
We can hammer the Druid and then focus the S Priest.
Do we take the battleground?
No, we're not gonna take the battleground. We're gonna keep doing threes.
Oh shit. Wait, what am I in? Am I in a 3 or a battleground right now? Oh, screw this shit.
Oh, you went in.
You went in.
How do I get out of this thing?
Hello. There we go.
Am I stuck now? Forever?
It says you're in queue. For the